been it's been quite a while since you were last here. This was after the protests and everything. But before we get started, just give us a brief take on what you think about the 4 weeks or 1 month into the Trump administration.
So thanks for the invite again. Thanks for having me on the show. As you said, it's been again a while. I seem to be called to the show when there's significant changes in the political arena, both at home and in the US.
Because you're a subject matter expert.
Because I'm an SME, subject matter
Straight
expert.
up, homie.
And I'll correct you. I'm not the former member of parliament for Langata. I was an aspirant.
An aspirant, yeah.
And we are thinking about 2027. I'll just leave it at that. The US has become a very different place than we knew just a month ago. One of my really good friends calls this place now Trumpistan. In other words, the rules of the game, the rules of existence in this country have fundamentally changed because we have a very radical right-wing arm of the Republican Party, which has basically overtaken democratic politics in the US. And if we just think back as to where all this started, well, the Republican Party has traditionally been known as a party of small government, limited scope of intervention by the federal government in state affairs, the party of conservative politics. But over, I'd say about the last 20 years, there was a very deliberate and systematic coup that was going on.
Yeah.
That the party has been taken over by right-wing conspiracy theorists, basically. Right-wing activists that have been very heavily funded and sort of read the mood and fears of the white majority in this country. And if you're a white person living in America in the last maybe 20 years, I would say, we've seen a lot of very dramatic changes in the society, culminating in the election of a black president. I think that was sort of the climax of it all. And there was obviously a backlash in which this radical elements, starting with the Tea Party and then the MAGA movement, have kind of reasserted themselves and taken over government. So they come with a set of things, and I think Trump is just representative of what this mindset is, and he's a very good spokesperson. A couple of things he promised during the elections, the campaigns, which was mass deportations, which we really didn't think was going to happen. I think it was an empty threat, and now we are seeing the country on tenterhooks. If you're an immigrant, if you're from a different country, particularly if you're a person of color, one of the hallmarks of this radical right, one of the fundamental things they're trying to do are to assert white superiority. Just as many immigrants come from Western Europe and Eastern Europe as from other parts of the world. In fact, the president's own wife and a lot of these Congress people, their family members, including the vice president's wife, is Indian. The president's wife is Ukrainian or some Eastern European nationality. So when they're talking about immigrants, they're also talking about these people, but they make it very clear that the bullseye is not on any immigrant. The bullseye is on people of color, Latinos and black people. And Indians, or people of Asian descent. So this is really not about immigration. It's really about a right-wing government asserting racial superiority. And the whole story about like criminal immigrants, immigrants themselves, and all this, what we call dog whistles they're using, it's really about asserting white superiority. I think even the gutting of USAID, other than sort of the other strategic parts of why it was done, it's really an assault or an assertion that the Southern Hemisphere, where all people of color live in dire conditions, struggling with humanitarian issues, wars, nutritional health issues, are dependent on us as a white country. The mood of the country has changed. What is really also remarkable is the assault they've launched against their traditional allies, without any friends in the world. So you know, Russia, China they're not traditional allies of the U.S. Obviously the president is trying to placate himself to them, but at the same time isolating his allies in Canada. We just saw the speech by the vice president in Europe, which was
in Germany,
highly offensive to the European Union partners. So the mood of the country has changed significantly. We as people of color, we as Kenyans, we as immigrants have to be just that much careful. I just want to say something that's tangentially unrelated, but I think I just wanted to say it to as many people as we can. We've heard of cases of Kenyans ratting out their fellow Kenyans, people who have grudges with each other, family members, exes. It's just
immigration.
That's just a low blow, and I think.
Are you saying that if I have a problem with Ali, I should not call?
You should sit down with Ali and speak to him. If you have a problem with your ex, whether it's move on.
Kuna watu hapa kwa studio.
Kuna watu wanaitiana.
Kuna do yangu na join
go to small claims court.
But is that thing real? Of Kenyans ratting out each other?
Well, I've heard reports. I mean, every rumor has some truth in it.
Which parts? Ratting out each other, they've been doing for a long time.
They've been doing this for a long time. But why people would do that to each other?
Is the one that is non-existent. Yeah, but they've been ratting each other, especially when people have issues with each other.
Personal issues, yeah.
Yes, relationships.
Yeah.
Guy goes left, chick goes right. Somebody makes a phone call.
Just move on. Like that. The only message I can.
But do you think ICE, with their sophistication, they would be relying on people ratting on each other?
Tips. They take tips.
I think
they take tips all the time. Just like the FBI and all these other guys, they take tips. And the thing about those tips is that for every tip that comes, you have to at some point, in some way, look into it. You don't necessarily, go in and say, okay, now I'm going to that address. But kuna zile unaangalia. Because they have a database. Like, let's say if you come in and you've overstayed, right? You normally, the last address that you record on your, what is it? Is it I-9? The entry. Back then, I don't even know what people do now. But anyway, so whatever it is, there's some sort of record as to which address you are at. So if somebody's calling in and saying this person at this place, assumption again is that they have all that information, right?
Yeah.
Then it's easy to check. Okay, is there a person?
But you'll agree with me primarily. The group of people who are notorious for calling immigration on each other are warring siblings because of personal jealousies. And estranged spouses. Those are the two groups who would be calling.
You mean lovers?
Lovers, exes, paramours, whatever you want to call them. I just want to say this, particularly to Kenyans who are listening. Just move on, right? Move on.
No, but I have a problem with believing, because there's a lot of stories being said with no evidence being offered.
So it's just a rumor. So all we're saying is that to dispel the rumor, to dispel the rumor, in case you are thinking about it and you're a Kenyan and you're listening.
Yeah, it's not the right way to take care of that issue.
In case you're thinking about it. But beyond that, I think the fact that we are it's not the biggest bullseye. Kenyans are not traditionally the most targeted community. But the fact that we are all under scrutiny, I think, just means that we all have to be more careful with our interactions and how we handle not just internal conflicts, but also shelter. Provide shelter to those who are are vulnerable, because there are a lot of undocumented Kenyans. There are a lot of people who are undocumented. They don't have papers. They've been working under the covers. So just providing that support is really important.
But so far it's I think a month into Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
What would you say is your overall take on those 4 weeks, and where do you think the 4 years will head?
I think the overall take, this will sound very counterintuitive. So anytime a a radical movement, especially one that's out to assert racial superiority, gets particularly virulent, you can think about it in one of two ways. So either they've become powerful, or these are the kicks of a dying horse. If you ask me, this Trump situation are the kicks of a dying horse. And I'll tell you, with context of similar movements, sort of right-wing movements, it became the most virulent when they realized that the counterparty, in this case, people of color, brown people, Indians, Africans, have come in and they have asserted their place in this country, right? If I was a white racist guy and I go to Silicon Valley and I find half of the founders are Asians or a quarter of the founders are Africans, asserting their sort of their knowledge and proving themselves in industry. If I go to Mooresville in the Research Triangle Park in Durham, most of that community is Asian and African, right? In the companies I've worked, most of the tech scientific companies that I've worked, majority of my colleagues are, of non-white descent. So if I'm a white American, sort of looking at these statistics from whatever level. So if you're a policymaker and you're looking at leadership in tech, or if you're a sweeper and you're looking at the CEO of your company, and you realize that something is changing fundamentally. Something is changing fundamentally that I can't reverse. I can't drag history back into what it used to be, where I had the choice of being racially superior.
But have these Indians and these Mexicans, haven't they been voting for the white supremacist party?
Well, there's a
yes.
Yes. The answer is the answer is partly yes, but it depends which Latino community you're talking about. So Latinos, by the way, are obviously not homogeneous. They come from very different countries, but more importantly, from where they come with very different persuasions. So, for example,
some of them, not all of them.
Yeah. So if you talk about Latinos in Florida, predominantly you have Cubans. Cubans are coming from a socialist system, so they perceive, and most of them came during the 1980s when they were running from socialism into what they thought was an ideal society. So a lot of Cubans lean Republican. So a guy like Marco Rubio, he comes from that generation of Cubans, mostly from Florida. If you look at Mexicans believe that New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and Southern California are part of their country. These were lost during the Texan Wars, right? So they have a very different persuasion in terms of like their politics. Puerto Ricans are looking towards statehood. So whatever political formation speaks to those issues, then they respond in kind. I don't think anybody thought that Trump was serious, right? Including Latinos. I think even Latinos thought, we're voting for this guy because we think he's going to be good for the economy. It's just, in fact, what Latinos call Trump, they call him a chihuahua. He barks but doesn't bite, right? He's small, he barks, he doesn't bite. That's how they've traditionally referred to him. But then now, a very assertive president is coming out and like deporting people. But at the same time, remember, there's 11 million immigrants in this country, many of whom are undocumented. So, sending a plane load, how many people does a plane hold? Maybe 200, and they can't, they don't jump pack them like a matatu. It's just 200 people, put them in a plane for show. I was looking at some report that it costs near a couple $1 million, I think close to $5-6 million to repatriate just one plane load. So how many plane loads are you going to take over the border?
Actually,
right?
It's 80 million. But
it costs a lot, right? Because on the other end, you have to do all the processing. Then you ship one military plane to fly all these people back and forth.
You figure out.
So how many planes are they going to have to?
What type of fuel are they using for?
They don't have enough detention facilities. They don't have enough planes. There's very little they are going to be able to do, because what are they going to do? They're going to put immigrants in buses, or is there a continental train that they're going to put people in to take them to Mexico? So I think a lot of it is just political rhetoric. He has to do he has to show that he's deporting people, and obviously it's very visible when you kind of publicize it on TV. But when you think about it in the scale of things, his actions in the last couple of weeks have hardly scratched the surface. In fact, some reports are saying that the Obama and Biden years were worse for immigrants.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
They were much worse for immigrants. The number of immigrants who were deported during the Obama years are significantly more than during the Trump years.
Was it something like 300 and something? Was it 300 and something a day, or was it 300 and something a month?
But kumbuka, Trump years,
a day, right?
There was COVID.
Yeah.
Where they could not do deportations.
But even how many? Yeah. I mean, there's 11 million. So how many are you going to be able to deport with flights? So if I don't know the math, I don't have a calculator, but if you do 11 million, divide by 250 times, how much did you say a flight is? 8 million.
No, apparently I was seeing something like 82. It's costing 82.
No, it's closer to, it's a couple million. It's not. But if you are to multiply that number, yeah, and the amount of
check. Let me ask.
The amount of resources that's needed. I think they are doing this for the purpose, for kind of to play to the gallery, right? They're doing this to play to the gallery, but in the sort of in the sum of things, I'm not really sure that there's going to be much impact. And then, executive orders can be challenged in court, right?
Correct.
These are not laws that are being passed. These are not even laws that I think necessarily will even pass through Parliament, through Congress, even with a Republican majority. And then the other thing is, just as a word of caution, not caution, but sort of reassurance, they don't also have enough time. You need 8 years to be able to have impact. He's already now, 3 years and 10 months left. So I'm not sure that he has much to give. So I agree with the assertion that Latinos call him a chihuahua. He'll bark a lot, do a lot of really outlandish things, but I'm not really sure that they'll have.
At this point, his shock and awe is working.
I really don't think they need eight years, because remember they had 4 years of planning this thing. Yeah. Everything Trump is doing is on Project 2025. It's well documented, and you can anticipate what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So if you say he needs 8 years to me today, I lost 30,000 colleagues who were fired just like that. Those guys don't need 8 years to feel his impact. They're feeling that impact immediately right now. So, and with that money that you're seeing they're saving by cutting all these programs, we are seeing right now that Tesla has been given a $400 million tender for supplying Cybertrucks to the government, to the federal government. Mm-hmm. This is money that is being pulled out from the existing budget right now. Let me finish my.
No, they changed to electric vehicles, but carry on.
This is money that is being pulled from the existing budget. Mm-hmm. It's not budget that is being waited for. So this is the impact that is felt now.
Mika,
this is eugenics right now that is happening, because when you take out aid from the two highest populous regions, which is three populous regions, South America, Africa, and Asia, take out aid that helps them with their healthcare, let them die from various diseases. So you're reducing, you're killing it from the source. You're killing these numbers of people that are immigrating and come from the source. You're deporting people here. Howeverly, you don't care. You're reducing it. You're taking away programs that help black and brown people, and that is what is giving them a quality of life to allow them to reproduce as they are, and reducing that. These are things that are felt right now. Black women not being protected in healthcare and during the pregnancies and their reproductive health being taken. It's something that is being felt now. They don't need 8 years. They keep this going on for 4 years. They've taken a huge chunk out of them. Him saying that he wants to talk to Putin and see that the US weakens itself, reduces its defense budget, is now. He's weakening the country now. Reducing intake of military employees is now. They don't need 4 years for the impact, for them to make an impact. They don't need 8 years.
Yeah, Mika, let me just qualify myself by saying we were talking specifically about the immigration issue, but I can quickly comment on some of the other really important issues that you've highlighted. Let's just start with this question of foreign aid. So, USAID has this enormous budget that the U.S. taxpayer basically pays as aid or gives as aid to the rest of the world as part of a larger strategy to assert American influence in the world. The USAID was formed during the Kennedy years as an act of Congress. So it's a statutory institution. So it also, there's a lot of questions about how it's been gutted. The other thing I think this right-wing government has chosen to do, and this kind of points to sort of the desperation that they have. They've chosen to break all the conventional rules, right? And some of the conventional rules are not rules that we necessarily have because of legislation. These are just agreements. So, and a good example is like the certification process of the elections in January 2022, what happened with the insurrection. Democracy has never been about having legislation, right? That governs how people accept accepting the outcome of the elections. That has always just been a gentleman and ladies agreement, basically accepting that the outcome of the election is leaning to a certain way. That has always just been a cultural practice. But the Republican establishment has, or this right-wing wing of the Republican Party has been very, very specific about breaking norms, right? So, respecting the independence of an institution like USAID, that is not written in law. That is just a common understanding that the American people have had with the government and the rest of the world, that as a leading country, as the world superpower, we have a responsibility because we have the ability to support healthcare and reconstruction and humanitarian aid in the rest of the world. So I see that part. Then the second part is the role that humanitarian aid has played in the world, or foreign aid has played in the world. And let's just take Kenya as a case study. So last year, Kenya received $640 million US. That was disbursed primarily through local organizations and a few private entity organizations to support the Kenyan people in different areas. So main focus of that aid is healthcare, so providing access to HIV, HIV services, retrovirals, programs to help persons who are infected, access to contraception. So a lot of health-related programs took about a third of that 640 billion. And then the other part is access to water, so developing water supply, particularly in the rural counties. I know this quite well because this is a sector I've worked in quite extensively. So in northern Kenya, most of USAID's water-related funding is focused on our northern arid lands. So in places like Turkana, Marsabit, Wajir, Isiolo, and there's one more, Garissa. So in Turkana, as an example, so the way it works is these aid organizations have divided and conquered these counties, and Catholic Relief Services provides all the services, including healthcare, etc., in Turkana County. Then Food for the Hungry, I think, is in Isiolo. Then Care is in Marsabit. Then Wajir has World Vision. So they've kind of divided it and conquered it, right? I think it's a very effective way of doing it, just very similar to dividing and conquering the continent to to govern it during the colonial times. So that's what they have done. As a result, if you go to those counties, Turkana, most of water services and healthcare is provided by Catholic Relief Services. They receive a lion's share of the money that comes through USAID. So I think the amount they get yearly is about $2.8 million, which is a colossal amount of money, right? And think about the population of Turkana. It's not very big. Then the Catholic Council of Bishops also receives another chunk. Another question I have there is, how is a faith-based organization, and by the way, I'm Catholic, so how is a faith-based organization, the National Council of Churches, National Council of Catholic Bishops, receiving money from the taxpayer? There's questions there. But, back to this example of Turkana. So water services, health services, a lot of the education up to tertiary level is being provided by an NGO. So what does the Turkana government, local government, then do with the money that they get from the exchequer? They buy cars.
They embezzle.
People become overnight millionaires. We will be talking later about Kiambu County. I've been there. The headquarters for the Turkana County government is larger than the White House. And I'm not kidding you. This is a arid area with nothing. Right in the middle of the desert, you have this huge, monstrous building with a landing pad, a helipad on it. This is not. I'm not joking. So this is what the money that comes from the exchequer goes to then do. And this has been the case for the last 30 years. Turkana, including on that by the way also includes the refugee camps. These are being run by NGOs, the UN and Catholic Relief Services. So Catholic Relief Services has a disproportionate influence on the people of Turkana and the county. Now, as a person of faith, and as I said, as a Catholic, one part of me says that's a good thing. The other part, which is more pragmatic, says that all you're doing when you do that, and then replicate that across the counties, you're enabling corruption,
yes,
and dependency, right? So that if these NGOs, and by the way, USAID has continuously funded these programs. I'll give you another, anecdote that came out of the field. These I saw with my own eyes. So in the 1980s, between, I'd say about 1982 and 1990, Catholic Relief Services spent a ton of money through a German grant, if I remember correctly, building water boreholes, because they thought that was the solution. They built a bunch of boreholes in the couple hundreds to 1,000 across Turkana to provide water service. Because a borehole is not necessarily very expensive. And Turkana, by the way, has a lot of groundwater. And then about 15 years later, only like 10% of those boreholes were functional, right? So all first, the money that was pumped in by aid is gone. All the interventions that have subsequently been done to kind of rehabilitate these boreholes, because you go to a borehole, the handle broke, right? So no one knows where to find the part to replace it. So something in the pipe, detached or something. So what happens over time is that you have this dependency. The people of Turkana are dependent on Catholic Relief Services for water services. But water is not free. They should be investing in those systems themselves. The local government should be investing in those systems themselves. So we're just talking about like one county. So now replicate health services across Kenya. Over and above that, these NGOs, and they do good work. I mean this with in good faith. Knowing that there are a lot of NGOs out there that are doing very important and good work, but a lot of them are also party to the corruption we are always complaining about. In fact, I wrote to Morara and I told him, hey, Morara, if you're listening to this show, you need to investigate some of these NGOs. Because if you look at the cars they drive, I remember going in a convoy of more than 100 SUVs. I have a picture somewhere, I can even put it up. More than 100 SUVs going to open one borehole. One borehole in Kenya costs about, plus mobilization costs, something like 1.5 million in that part of the country. If you're in central Kenya, you're maybe half of that. One SUV out of those 100, how much does it cost? $90,000. So where is the money going? Right? It goes to salaries. Why is NGO work the most lucrative work you can do in Kenya. Well, that money is supposed to be going to who? It's supposed to be going to the
people who need the service.
The people who need the service. So, Mika, my response is, cautiously, it's a bad thing that a whole agency should be shut down. It affects a lot of people in the short term. But you also have to ask questions about, are what they're saying about waste, fraud, and abuse, in this particular instance, is it actually true? Then you replicate this across the world. I think a lot of money is being lost. And we are the taxpayers. We're the ones who are paying this money. You as a taxpayer in the US, you are filing your taxes next month. Now, anyway, so una file taxes.
But then, Wangusi, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But then, if you're gonna, one thing you have to realize is that, let's look at the good or the impact that these things have done, right? HIV/AIDS right now as a disease is not considered as how can I say it? It's considered like a normal disease, a living disease, a disease that people can live with.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is specifically, thankfully, to PEPFAR.
Mm-hmm.
Without PEPFAR, HIV would have ravaged the whole world badly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that in these places where you're saying that the county government or the local government is supposed to if right now we take out this aid, right?
Mm-hmm.
The price of protection in most of these countries will be too expensive for people to afford. The price of antiretrovirals are going to be too expensive for people to afford.
Mm-hmm.
The price of test kits that people use to help themselves in protecting themselves, they're going to be too expensive for people to afford. Things like malaria. Malaria right now is not as dangerous as it was before.
Yeah.
Right? Africa is the only continent in this world that actually can't survive an epidemic. Why? Because of the infrastructure and the work that was put during the Ebola days. And that was helpfully because of what? That office in the CDC that Obama opened that Trump closed.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about the waste, we can talk about the local governments that are supposed to pull in and put in the effort. But if we're just being honest to ourselves, we know all these areas that we come from, the corruption that will be there, they will not even bother in doing anything to sustain ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can say we want to do good. We can say we're going to investigate them. We can say we're going, but then I usually talk about the now, right?
Mm.
What happens next? Has anyone come with a solution of what happens next? If this aid is closed, kabisa, haiendi, what happens next in Africa? What happens next in Asia? Let's talk about Kenya.
Yeah,
you yourself, you have said here quite well, a pump breaks down, nobody knows where to get a pump with the parts for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take away the Catholic Church from that. Let's give it to Turkana County and tell them to run the pumps. We will have a problem with water accessibility, right? We'll have a problem with education. The CDF,
mm-hmm.
most counties don't have schools. The schools are being built by churches and other NGOs.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is just simple. What are we doing now next?
So,
okay, we're taking away the NBS. It's a waste. We are wasting our taxpayers' money. You know something? If I'm paying my taxes and my taxes are helping people survive somewhere,
mm-hmm.
have food security, have health care, I'm more than happy for those taxes to be wasted in that way, than right now for my taxes to be wasted and being paid to a billionaire.
That makes it. I mean, I think this is where one of those things now. This is where we are going to really have to buckle down, because fine, aid has been cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is happening is happening. Guys have been laid off. Those like Mika is saying, some of those people dependent on those services that were being provided now zimedidimia. On this other side, like you said, these guys have been so dependent on Catholics and the charity and whatever that they have never ever thought about thinking and making their government answerable,
accountable,
and accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, in the meantime, right now, as we speak, right now, yes, they're in limbo. What is the next best step? What are you going to tell the person who has been getting the ARV? What are you going to tell those people who have been surviving on the water from the borehole or whatever, that this thing is broken? What are the charity? Even if they are brought back even after 6 months or a year,
mm-hmm.
between now and then, a lot of damage will be done. In the interim, what is the stopgap? So stopgap Nigani, and I think that's what Mika is asking. In the meantime, stopgap Nigani, what to do? Because right now, nothing is being communicated.
Yeah.
Because and maybe they are. I don't know. Like now, for example, if you look at the areas, Mandera, the ones that you're talking about, dependent on that service, what has the local government come out to say? This is what we are going to do. What have they? What have they promised to do? What have they come out to say? This is what we're going to take over. This, we're going to do this. What is the communication? So because chances that is none.
So let me just say this, Mika, and I'll get to some of the issues that you've raised as well. So the irony is, the people of Turkana may just realize that the whole time they were not even receiving the services at the level they thought they should have. This was just a dependency,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if let me go back to the number that I gave you. So $637 million, that's 0.5% of our GDP.
Yeah.
Being pumped by one organization as aid. Then all these other aid organizations investing slightly, significantly less, but nonetheless it's important. So what might happen is Turkanans might realize that with or without aid, this money was not reaching us to begin with. Because if Millennium Water Alliance or the aid organizations that are working there, Catholic Relief Services, had actually been pumping that money to develop a world-class water system, they would not have the problem they have right now, right? But where has all that money evaporated to if these investments have been made continuously over the last 30 years? Think about it. Like if, let's say, I don't know what the number is, but out of the 637 million, let's say, 5% of it ends up in Turkana. How much is that? That's about $3 million US dollars per year. We're talking about per year. Multiply that by 30. Means about $100 million should have been invested in Turkana. $100 million is not pocket change. That is a lot of money.
Yeah.
If it was only going into hospitals and the water system just to provide that primary care, there should be world-class medical facilities in Turkana. There should be world-class water systems in Turkana. But if you go there's nothing. There's a couple of boreholes, some that work, some that don't work. People have done experiments. They've bought big cars. They've got big salaries, and they're out of there. Right? So maybe the people of Turkana might realize that we didn't need these people to begin with. The other thing, historians have described this in different ways. So the only way that societies innovate is when they are innovating out of their problems. They are solving problems, right? Whether that's social development, trying to kind of maybe come up with better accountability systems, better systems of government, innovations like technology innovations that solve certain problems. Think about the U.S. in 200 years, 150 years ago. This country was plagued with civil war. The whole country was blanketed with conflict, tribal, ethnic, religious, racial conflict, right? And then not even 50 years after that, you are talking about putting a man in the moon, right? You are talking about the atom bomb. 50 years after that, they were putting a man on the moon. Think about that. 1865, when the Civil War ended, people were using horse-drawn buggies and fighting with muskets. 100 years from that, in 1965, they already had missions to the moon. The question I have is, will Kenya have missions to the moon in 100 years? The answer to that will still be dependent on aid, because we are dependent. So we are not thinking about solving our own problems, right? So in the short term, it might look like a bad thing, right? It might look like a bad thing because you have these immediate needs. There's, hungry children in this part of the world. There's thirsty women in this part of the world. But if we don't start changing our behavior, because the spread of HIV is as much a function of medication and interventions as it is a function of behavior. So that is probably what needs to be changed with policy, right? And just communal behavior and acceptance that if we behave a certain way, the disease spreads. But if we know I can go and sleep around because now I'm getting free ARVs, of course I'm going to misbehave, right? So I think it's really a question of not where we want to go in the next 1 year, but where we want to go in posterity. Do we want to be a nation or a country or a region or a continent that is dependent on foreign interests to provide our basics, or do we want to be a country that is self-reliant? My thought is that if over the next couple of years aid is cut off, we are going to have to innovate. Turkanas will have to figure out how do we actually provide these services to ourselves. Now, Kenyans will have to think about their own democracy and how they develop it to fit their specific local needs.
So you bring up an interesting point, right? About, but see, the way that we are structured right now, government is not doing what they're supposed to do, meaning we don't have policies in place, we don't have the money being pumped correctly to bring the services, basic service. We're talking basic, we're not talking about because water is a basic, right? We shouldn't have NGOs supplying the water, right? But the fact that they are not should not mean that then now, because the funding has stopped, or it has the I guess the well has run dry, then now we become I guess self-reliant, and that self-reliance, we are not there. It took time for
but how will we get there if we
getting there should not be that we turn the tap off. That's not the way we get there.
But the intention,
it needs to be phased in, if you ask me. Right? Just like you're saying, if we're going back and we're interrogating and we're saying, okay, the big cars, the money, the corruption, the county's doing this because things were devolved, and the country should be providing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If Ministry of Health are the ones who are now saying, okay, we're going to manage ARVs and all of this stuff, and we'll make sure that it comes in, and so on and so forth. Whether it's with some intervention, I mean, even if it's not the US, it could be coming from Norway or whoever. It doesn't matter. But the whole point of it is that it needs to be phased in. It shouldn't be that one of, okay, boom, light switch on, light switch off, and expect.
But there was never any. There's never been any mechanism in place to phase in or to phase out dependency. That mechanism has never existed. The aid complex was there to stay.
Yeah, but see,
right?
the issue about the phasing in, right? That's where now the people, the leaders who are in power, or the people who are elected, are supposed to be able to.
But they have no. Well, how does that?
No.
Think of, yeah.
Let me finish. So the leaders or the people who are in power are supposed to be thinking of how they're going to get to that particular point, right? Or to that particular place. Because ultimately, it is not for those NGOs to do this indefinitely. The problem is that the way that the money is spread out when it comes into the NGO, the indefinite part is that today I'm going to be eating. Then tomorrow the next guy eats. Then the day after, the guy who's coming has come, whoever came in is eating. So this cycle of eating is a continuous cycle of eating, as opposed to saying, okay, we need to put policies in place and set it up such that these, okay, fine, these guys have got this structure in place, blah, 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 and say the Turkana government or whoever takes over those boreholes and takes over making sure that those things are supplied, those things are in place and they are working. I'll give an example for where I come from. It's an island. And we don't have there are no wires that are coming in. But KPL brings electricity in by generator. it's a generator that KPL is fired up, and it's down that supply the island. And this is Kenya. You know, so for somebody thinking about, they'd be like, huh? At what? It's a generator, and it's the generator that's because iko huko. Iko ndani. It's not like the wires or cables are gonna go anywhere where you have those things, nini. So the supply of elect there is coming in with it's coming in from the generator.
Yeah. Right?
Now when this generator goes out, it's a wrap. Kama kuna petroli, it's a wrap. So that is not, in my opinion, that is not for the local government to say, okay, then now we're the ones who are going to have to go look for a way of bringing this up, right? Because that's something that they came up with a solution. They said, okay, we're looking around, the topography does not allow us to lay cable and to do all of these things, so we have to come up with a solution that's going to work. And that's the solution that works. And they build people and they do everything. So you, as a consumer, you don't know that your elect is coming via generator. You don't know that that's what's happening. And so on the same token, if we can cut off this whole cycle of it's my turn to eat, that's where the problem is.
But that is happening.
It's my turn to eat is the problem, not the fact that we're getting aid.
No, but the point you're making is very important, and I'll give you the answer. Okay. So what just happened? One of the topics which Ali laid out was this guy called Waititu, but Waititu represents a lot of the first class of the freshman class of governors who came in under the new constitution, right? So we had the likes of Waititu, Sonko, what is the other Kiambu governor, right? Kabogo, right? So there was a certain caliber.
Kabafalo.
Yeah, there's a certain caliber of individuals who are riffraff, non-criminals.
These were previous MPs.
Yeah, but
who elevated themselves.
But it came with a certain persona. What has happened over but what has happened? Accountability structures have kicked in because the city of Nairobi, this is another sort of artifact of the way the aid complex works in Kenya. So they'll not fund any projects in urban areas. They're particularly focused in where the poor people are or where in rural counties, right? So in Nairobi, no Nairobian is sitting there waiting for USAID. No one is waiting for care. Sure. No one is waiting for food for the hungry. If you don't have water, it is because of your governor.
Correct.
If you're in Kiambu and you don't have water coming through your taps, and you know that Ndakaini Dam is just down the road, you go to your governor. And what has happened? There's an intake that has been built to provide water to the local community because of advocacy from the local community, and they don't have anyone else they can go to. A lot of the water services that are being provided in many of these counties are paid for by the users, right? They are through water use associations and water service providers. I know this sector well because this is an area that I work in. So what has happened over the last 5 years in Kenya, particularly in urban counties, accountability mechanisms are kicking in. If you are a governor and you are known to have stolen money, people start asking, where is that money? Because we need it for development.
Correct.
If you are a senator and people know that this guy, or an MP, and we know that this guy was given money for our bursaries and it didn't get to us, you're not waiting for an NGO. There was a time NGOs used to heavily operate even in urban centers, but they stopped. So this kind of complex has been pushed out into rural counties. So what is happening is accountability mechanisms are beginning to kick in. So all of a sudden, the pressure becomes, political pressure is built so much in the system that the president or the powers that be are forced to start investigating these cases, right?
Okay.
So this needs to happen across the country. Then folks in
agreement about
Somali, Somalis in Wajir and Garissa, will start asking their local government, why is it that we have a multi-million mansion or building for your county assembly and you're running around in helicopters, driving SUVs, when we don't have roads? They start asking the questions to the right people. But then when you're having these services provided by an NGO, what do? You put your bowl out. You become a beggar. So I think, in my humble view, it hurts a lot of people. Micah, I'm not immune or insensitive to that fact, but I think in the long term, it will be a good thing if aid is suspended in the global south.
It will be a good thing
over time. Yeah,
I agree with you. I agree with you. It will be a good. It will be a good thing if the whole world will be on a level playing field, where everybody trades with the other one on a level playing field. Right? You want to deal with Africa? Trade. Don't come and do diplomacy. Don't come and do aid things. It's the same way. It will have been, but we know that it will never get there.
It will get there if the mindset of Africans and the recipients of aid changes.
You see, the people who are controlling the money right now already know that the resources in that continent right now, and with the knowledge that people have learned, these days people have learned a lot of things. That continent is shifting. You're not getting resources for cheap money. What they're trying to do, they're trying to make it poor again. Make it poor again.
Why? What is the defense, Mike? I'm not getting you. So what is the defense of the aid complex coming back? The what is the defense? What is the basis of that defense? Yeah.
I'm not even defending the aid in anything. I'm talking about the action, the consequence, what they're doing with that. Right? They're not taking aid because they're feeling it's corruption. It's a small amount of money that they don't even feel the waste of it. The amount of money that America uses on defense is enough to improve everybody's life here. Every American's life can be elevated more than 10 times if that money was kept in the country. We spend, America is the highest defense spend on defense.
Budget.
Correct.
Then,
the highest.
Yeah, it's the highest. And do you know the second highest spend of defense for America on military budget? It's not even another country. It's the Coast Guard. Right? And then before that, the people that follow in defense in the follow American defense are allies to America. So we don't need that money. That we don't need. But if we're talking about waste, we are wasting money in so many different places that if we pull it back. So for me, I'm not even talking about the aid. I'm talking about the impact that they know when they pull this aid is coming out. You look at the impact of it. You don't look just the way, look at the thing. Look at the things that are being done in the country right now. The things that are being done in the country are being done with immediate impact on certain things to weaken certain aspects of the country.
So I do have a question for you, Micah. So it happened already. So it wasn't even anticipated, but it has happened already. So there's a big chance, and from what I'm reading, a lot of the and I believe it's like 1% of the U.S. budget that goes into foreign aid. So most of this money is going to be pumped into DFC, the Development Finance Corporation, which is a totally it has a very different approach to development. It's not humanitarian; it's focused on infrastructure development and the likes. So the plug has already been pulled. The wire has been cut, been tossed out. USAID does not exist.
And that is fine.
The organization is a defunct. If you look on Wikipedia, it no longer says USAID is. It says USAID was, right?
You know, Wangusi, what you're not getting me.
So my question. No, I'm driving at a question here. So the plug has already been pulled, right? Now, nation states, including those that are heavily dependent. In fact, Kenya is one of those that is not. We are not in a bad way. There are countries whose, like Rwanda, for example, Burkina Faso, there's a percentage of their budget, significant percentage of their budget, which is supported by aid.
Their whole health system depends on aid. The whole of it.
So now what happens? What is the way forward? Because the way forward is either you sit there and keep, shout louder and put your balls out, or you internalize that, you look inside and figure out, okay, with what we have, what are we
This is what we can do.
This is what we can do.
Who's the president of Burkina Faso?
I don't know.
Okay.
Burkina Faso is one of those countries that that cut off the French, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one with the military?
Ibrahim Traore.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna speculate, and I'm not gonna throw career things out there.
But the thing, and this is what I'm saying. When I say that, you see, Wangusi, when I'm saying that, I know we are going to have to get to a point whereby we'll have to survive and evolve, right? Yeah. And you said it pretty well. Innovation comes when you want to improve your life. Innovation is caused usually by discomfort, right? There's a discomfort that makes you want to create a certain comfort to yourself and to do things with. I work in the technical field. We innovate tech every day. We automate everything. We in the tech field we usually say if a language can be spoken, if something can be spoken in any written language, it can be spoken or written in any language. It can be coded. It can be automated, right? So the thing is, we understand that innovation is going to come in, that evolution is going to come in, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, if right now we have 1 million strong minds, and by the time we're doing that evolution, we are 200,000, we are 800,000 weak, right? Even if we make that evolution to support that 200,000, we still put ourselves at an impasse whereby our numbers are so less.
Yeah.
How do we sustain ourselves to continue growing ourselves? You see? And let's not lie to ourselves. Aid is gonna go back. Aid is gonna come back. It's the only way America does foreign
espionage.
Forget espionage. What do you call it? No.
I guess it's diplomacy. Part of it is
the diplomacy. Yeah. It's sort of like Russia, China will go and help you overthrow somebody. They'll come and help you. America usually likes to deals, trade deals, money, aid, nini, build like we are your friends of you. That's how they usually do their foreign policy. So at some point it's going to come back once they see that China and Russia are taking advantage of that. At some point it's going to come back. It doesn't mean it's going to come back with this government or another, but it's going to come back.
Yeah, but
I'm saying is before it comes back or before we innovate ourselves, the damage that is being done, it's a calculation. I'm not defending it. I'm saying this is a calculated.
But does that mean because the aid complex has been disabled? Because by the way, a lot of also this and
what I'm saying is that Wangusi, what I'm saying is aid has been disabled. Watch and see how our numbers are going to be affected. Watch and see how disease is going to cut.
No.
Hunger and all this. And the reason I'm saying that, remember when I started talking today, I said what? All this is eugenics. All this is in Project 2025.
No, there's that plan. The plan is to assert racial superiority to affect the brown peoples of the world. So there's two things I said earlier. So the first is we might just be surprised to realize, right, that anyway, most of this money did not even get to us to begin with. A lot of money is being thrown at aid organizations, but by the time it trickles down, it's very minimal. The impact is very minimal. I'll give you another example. So I come from a small village called Maturu. It's primarily family and clan members, people from my community. So our village has a really interesting history. So it was it started as a Quaker commune. I don't know if you know what communes are, but in the past, when missionaries came to our region, and I think this happened across the country, they would set up within a friendly community, and then slowly build up from there. So the communities around there would congregate so that kids would get health care, go to school. They would set up a school. They would set up a clinic. They would set up a borehole or a water point. So it became like a convention ground. It kind of drew in the community. So my village looks very much like a commune. So there's a school, primary school, high school. Now there's years later there's a college, a school for disabled people. So we are very ideal community for NGOs to actually come in, because we are at a convenient distance. We're not too far from the road. We're accessible, and they can use that to go and tell their stories to get more money. So World Vision had been there for very many years. And what we realized, World Vision, and then they brought in other organizations which brought in like life straws, try and treat water and those kind of NGO interventions, for kids and things like that. But when I look at our community, the most impact has only come from the things that we have done for ourselves. It was our grandparents who gave land to build a school, right? NGOs are not going to come by rules of engagement. They are not going to come and look in the community and say, okay, we want to build a school. How much land is there? We have $2 million for education. They're just going to come and kind of, scratch, touch the surface. They are not going to build a lasting institution. Our church, our local church, the wealthier members of the village gave land, established a school, and that is what became the foundation of progress within our little village. Over time, the local government, the county government came and because of lobbying from the village itself, they set up a polytechnic next to the primary school. We had already got a primary school and a secondary school. And then over time, the church, I was heavily involved with this, under the last mile program. Okay, granted, it's funded by the World Bank, which is a development finance institution. It's not an NGO. So we're going to pay that debt whether or not we like it. Are the ones who went and applied for electricity. We helped do that. So electricity went to the school, electricity went to the church and the market center. What that meant is that a different set of businesses have kind of evolved out of that. So no NGO involvement. If I look at what NGOs have done, it's all on the walls, and I'll explain to you what that means. So there was an NGO that came some years back, and they looked at the data around like instances of waterborne diseases. So they started giving people this life straw. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a little gadget that you fix to your bottle, and if you drink it, filters the water as you drink it and removes pollutants from the water, so it's safe to drink. And then there's another version of it which is installed on a tap. So we have our village has a little creek where we used to get water from there before people realized, wait, we have to actually develop the skill for actually digging boreholes because we can improve the water quality. That was not done by NGOs. That was done by local people. So we used to go to the river, and then this NGO came, and in the intake pipe they put that life straw. Maji kitoka ni safi. And then I don't know what happened. The filter in the life straw after the NGO had left broke. So someone took all those life straws, and now if you go into the houses in the village, they're on the walls like decorations. Right? So this is the work of NGOs, right? They've not built us a hospital. They've not built us a health center. They've not built us a school. They've not developed our community.
Wangusi,
so if you replicate that across the country, right? The lesson there is that unless we are self-reliant, we look at the problems in our own society as elders, as people in the diaspora. I look at the problems in my society and I realize the only way I can serve water services or improve healthcare in my village is not by coming and kind of whitewashing the problems. I need to put a water system there. I need to go to the government office and tell them, hakuna stima kwa village yangu. How do you do the application? I need to get elders together to go to Kenya Power tuandikishe watu waeke stima kwa hiyo village. We need to widen the roads. We need to put the stormwater system. That's what is going to develop Kenya, right? This is what is going to develop the global south largely. Mike,
Wangusi was telling you the one thing is, and not to beat into this aid conversation right now. If we talk about the World Bank and what they were actually funding in Kenya, they were doing more than just NGOs.
No, that's why I said they are a development finance institution. That's a very
no. Forget the World Bank. I'm talking about USA.
Yeah. No, USA. I mean, like, I have the list. I mean, we can put it up and look at it if you want. Like, if you look at the things
if you put up if you put up that list and you see that the money are not going, I can show you all the universities in Kenya are getting money from that, right? It was touching up to intelligence services in Kenya. So the money was going into so many places and it's not, and that is just Kenya. And if we look at other countries, where that money in AIDS, in term of aid, where it was going, it was going.
But military spending is not should not be an aid package. That should be on bilateral
and I totally understand
right?
you. So for me, what I'm saying is that if we are if you speak on this in this matter of US aid just in terms of the NGOs, yes, you might point and say that okay, kuna waste. But then if you look at it in where the money was going, especially in the schools, in the healthcare side, all those level 4, level 5 hospitals that counties built, you find cancer treatment wards in different hospitals, treatments that people want, dialysis treatments in different places in the hospital. We cannot sit down and say that.
But Nani was here, Morara was here, and he has gone through level those hospital after another across the country.
And then how many work? You know what? You're counting the few that Morara is saying don't work. How many of them actually have hospitals that work?
No. But the question I have, Micah,
you know,
the thing is, we cannot do that.
Let me finish. Let me finish. You know, we like pointing out negative things and pointing negativity because they make us look good or they make us look like we are pointing the realities of things. But also sometimes it's not bad when we say the things that actually work. How many hospitals are in Kenya that were not there a few years ago with the type of care that was there? The health system might not be working. The SHA and whatever might not be working. But if you go to different places, you'll find very good hospitals. I can tell you, my grandmother in Busia was doing dialysis. Ushago anatoka kwa boma anaenda anafanywa dialysis anarudi, right? Kwa sababu gani? Ya hiyo hosi yenye hiyo Kunyangu hospital yenye imetengenezwa hapo imepatiwa in part of money with the county government, another part of the money was coming from the donors.
Yeah, but what you're saying,
I'm saying if kama hiyo inafikishwa Busia, so we can say Morara amekuja akapoint out a few hospitals zenye county government wamekula pesa walikuwa nafaa kutengeneza and they didn't finish hawakumaliza part yao ya deal. But then we cannot come and turn around and say because Morara said that there are no other hospitals that are functioning.
No, but the one let me point this out.
If Morara points out 4 hospitals and we have more than 500 hospitals working in the country,
Micah, what I think I'm saying is not the status quo. It's aspirational, and on that we agree. So are we saying that the county government of Kakamega today cannot build a hospital with cancer, life-saving cancer, or high standard of cancer treatment or healthcare using taxpayer money? Is that what we are saying of ourselves? I mean, just think about what that means.
What you're saying is this.
When money is earmarked by an aid organization and they come with accountability standards in place, then the county government is obliged to either match or follow through because there's accountability structures that have been put in place by USA.
And is that helpful or not?
No, it is helpful. And what I'm not saying, by the way, what I'm not saying is that aid is all bad. All I'm saying is as a consequence of aid, right? It's the same as like, you know, social services, right? What do social services? Social services or handouts, you know, they create a dependency. That's what we are saying. They create a dependency. So I think the county government of Kakamega now that they don't have these aid packages coming at them, will start to rationalize their own budget. So instead of thinking, oh, we're going to spend 100 million on cars, suddenly they'll be thinking, wait, maybe we actually need to buy smaller cars so that we have money to build our hospitals, right? The other thing I want to say, and I think it's a good segue into the next topic we're going to be talking about, which is on security. If you look at just further afield in East Africa, right? We have this East and Central Africa, we have this conflict going on in the Great Lakes region. So I said this to a friend of mine, and they first got upset, then they stopped and they thought, right? So MONUSCO has been in North and South Kivu for the last we are now talking about 30 years, right?
Who is MONUSCO?
MONUSCO is the UN-led security team force in different iterations during the first Congo War, then the second Congo War, then now this new conflict. They've been there for 30 years. And I know I'm exaggerating and oversimplifying this, but M23 did what MONUSCO has failed to do for 30 years in one day. Right?
Which was what?
Which was establish the security situation within the region. Right? In one day. In just a few weeks. With the determination that, wait, we can no longer wait for these people to come and help us. And then as a result, what has happened? The East African Union and the SADC community have come together for the first time. Africans have come together to solve their own problems without being pushed by the UN, without being given threats by America, because America is focused internally.
It's not the first time they've come together,
right?
But that's okay.
So they've come together to solve their own problems. Now,
it's not.
We're not saying...
We used to do stuff as OAU all the time.
Well, that was in the 60s during the Pan-African days,
in the
right?
60s. In fact, even when Muammar Gaddafi was still alive. So that was not, it wasn't in the 60s.
So the point I'm making is, as we kind of, figure out this whole dependency on aid, dependency on the West, and then you see what their intentions, their real intentions in the fact that you had these mercenaries, right? Mm-hmm. That is what those people are really there for. They are really there for the wealth.
I think what we should do is we should provide context, give a background on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because
so are we moving on now?
Yeah, no, I was just giving that as an example on the security side.
Have we left Ile?
No, actually, we need to leave the aid conversation.
No, we're going to leave. We're going to leave there.
Tumepiga.
But this one jumped to the gun. Because I was going to introduce the topic. Tumeiongea sana. Because guess what? It's still an ongoing thing. It's still ongoing. And right now, it's still as he said, it has been cut, plug has been pulled, whatever wire has been cut. So right now, it's going to be a matter of trying to find stability. Maybe a backstop here, maybe a plug here, maybe a band-aid over here. Before now, again, before now, people realize that, did we really need the NGO, or these guys are just cooling our taxes? There's a whole, and we're gonna figure that out as time goes by. And ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to an encore presentation of the One Mic Show. Today we have a whole lot of discussions.
Comments?
Comments. Relax, boss. Relax, because the main guy amepata ile ugonjwa ya njugushi, ile ya mask hiyo ayuko.
Ake Mungu, you guys are so wrong.
Ameenda.
So alikuwa namba kunini
hiyo. So wacha tukaribishe R hapa. Steven Jaganyi says Ali, hiyo ni ile homa njugusha aliongelea ama?
And he said this.
Yes,
he said this before.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I think Ali aliona hii comment akasema, wacha nifunge tu safari.
Karibu sana Anji, anasema Traore, when I was saying to think of the president for Burkina Faso.
And
resilient.
We were told over here.
Yeah. Resilient says they will continue with aid, but they want accountability. They are saying they want to make sure as they give out money, it aligns with their interests. And I think this is the US giving out aid.
But they're the same guys who have been giving the money out. When you say it aligns with their interest, what do you mean? They're the ones who came into these programs and they lined themselves up so that they could have themselves seen as the US. So, hapo kwa aligning the interest, they've already aligned the interest.
It's so bad.
The issue is not about aligning of interest. The issue is about...
But we have to also make sure we also have to do the same, right? It's so bad that when we write our budget, I've on three occasions been involved in a section of the budget writing process. We actually earmark aid. So we budget, we say, healthcare services, water services, HIV interventions, but we don't even have the money. We are not budgeting money we think we have because we know someone else. You tell the government agency, the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education, go with your ball. Equally, one of the things we should do, Micah, to answer your question, we should also align that aid that is going to come, if it comes again, but we should also align it to our own values and to our own priorities, right? So that the government is saying, you guys can't just show up and take up a county and start giving services. There are accountability structures in place. Because for the longest time, the government has just kind of stepped back.
Hapo ndio sasa mahali kuna problem.
Yes,
because they are the ones who tell us how to spend the money. It's not us who are telling them this is our need.
But if GOK said
hapo ndio pali kuna
but if our president
kuna msosi unacheza na msosi ya mtu.
Yeah, lakini kama serikali ingesema amwezi tu enda mkapatiana pesa kwa ma-NGO na kwa account.
Bro, unacheza na msosi ya mtu. Resilient continues to say, for how long will we continue to entertain mediocrity in Kenya? The money being squandered by the so-called politicians is enough to build Kenya. Why not get bitter with our leaders?
Asante. Resilience, you nailed that one.
Angie says it's the same as the welfare in the US, which has crippled the minorities.
That's BS. This is the same.
No.
This is the same Angie who lives in the South and says she's never seen racism.
I don't know. Resilience says we forget US has its own challenges. Trump is simply saying he wants to take care of his people. Nothing wrong with that. Kenyans, let us mind our business. Our business is Kenya, period. And of course, Angie agrees with the resilient.
They always agree. And Angie is resilient and resilient is
Angie continues to say Kenyans must keep their leaders accountable, just like they are in the US. And Resilient says America owes us zero. It's not a must. They support us. And with a new government in the US, it's not business as usual. Interests have changed, says
Angie.
Higher.
Yes.
Here's the interesting thing.
Kuna comment ingine, kuna comment imeruka hapo.
Dr. Wangusi, please help me here. Resilient. Here's the thing. Talking about
Angie is resilient and resilient is Dr. Wangusi.
Allah,
they are all the three people.
Son of a twanga. So here's the thing. We've been talking about we have been talking about doing us. We've been talking about catering to our own, doing our own, supporting our own. Now, you brought up something prior that we needed to talk about. So there has been this conflict going on in the DRC.
Yes.
We do not know much about it. We do not. The only thing that we know is that there's M23, and M23 supposedly are supposed to be Rwandese, but they are working in the DRC. Again, that some people know.
Okay. Is this the rumor or that's the thing that's out there?
That is the rumor plus what is out there.
Okay.
For some. Okay. That there is kuna M23. Mpaka Kagame came out and put out a statement.
Yeah.
Cyril Ramaphosa came out and said something or whatever. So there's been a brouhaha. Atujui.
Okay.
Tutioe.
So basically they are not sending each other Valentine's cards.
Atujui. Okay. Unlike Trump and the Secretary of Homeland Security guy, walifanya Valentine's card together.
Yes.
We will deport you.
Yes.
So I think it's, what's going on in the DRC? Like I watched an interview, and it was an explainer by Dr. PLO
Lumumba. Yes.
Where I started understanding the history what's going on. But for our listeners who are Jewy, tafadhali, if you can, if you not, we'll support you. Summarize it in about 5 statements. But this is also part of, is this where, and I think Omosh mentioned or talked about how it's not the first time that Africa has gotten together to try to resolve an issue.
Correct.
Right? And providing support militarily or force or however you want to look at it. This is not the first time, but it has been done before, and I agree with you, especially when Gaddafi was in power. But we really don't know much about us. We really don't know so much about conflicts. We just hear about them, but we are bombarded with what's going on in Ukraine. We focus on that. We are bombarded with what's going on in Gaza. We focus on that.
Yeah, the Africa part is
Africa part. Not, even us as Africans,
not trickling for us this way.
We're not even paying attention to that.
Yes.
So there's also that, Dr. Wangusi.
So let me start with a disclaimer. And sort of some background about myself. So I'm Kenyan by birth, but I married in Rwanda.
So you're an M23.
You can say
M23
by marriage.
In fact, resilient. I pull it back. Dr. Wangusi is not resilient.
So the background is that I spent a lot of my the early part of my career in the region being mostly in Kenya, but also spent quite a lot of time in the Great Lakes region. And I sikutoka bure. So
it's his wife. I can't say the things I want to say.
Oh, sorry.
So M23. So the background here is, and it would be very helpful if you could put up the graphic we had discussed earlier. So the background here is that we have a community called they go by different names. Some people call them Banyarwanda, others call them Rwandese, others call them Rwandans. There's Tutsi, there's Hutus, M23, Banyamulenge, Bafumbira.
Yes,
so there's a lot of verbiage that's used to describe the same ethnic community.
Use the verbiage we are familiar with.
The same ethnic community.
Because
The history is the Great Lakes region. The Great Lakes region here being primarily the area around Lake Victoria. There's Lake Turkana and other large lakes like Kivu. Had one kingdom, or this part of Central Africa being Burundi, Rwanda, North and South Kivu, and also Northern Uganda. Had historically was one kingdom called the Urundi Rwandan kingdom. So it was just a kingdom, much like the Baganda or I don't know, England, the United Kingdom. It was a kingdom that had almost a homogeneous ethnic group, or not homogeneous ethnic. Had a homogeneous ethnic identity, including a homogeneous ethnic language as well as culture. So between the Barundi, the Banyarwanda, who are the Rwandan speakers who live in Rwanda, the Rundi are the Kinyarwanda speakers who Kirundi and Kinyarwanda are really just the same language. It's like talking, it's like saying, it's not even like saying, Maasai and Samburu. Those are just, it's not even a dialect. It's the same language spoken by the same peoples, but in different geographical regions. So Kirundi, Kinyarwanda are the same language. So geographically they're in different places, and now in different countries. If you cross over to the eastern DRC, North Kivu and South Kivu used to be part of that larger kingdom, right? So in North Kivu and South Kivu, you have Rwandan-speaking population that are called the Banyamulenge. They are the same ethnicity.
People, yeah.
And then if you go to southern Uganda, you also have the Bafumbira, who are also again the same. It's the same tribe, ethnic group, same ethnicity, same language, same culture. And then you have other tribes which are ethnic groups which are related. The same way Kikuyus are related to Merus, dialects. They are dialects of the same language. Or if you talk about the Luya and the Samia, sort of one people. Is the map up?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at that map, you have, below Ganda, you have this little, green spot with Rwanda on one side, and then at the bottom Burundi. But across the border, the Banyarwanda, the North and South Kivu were part of that larger kingdom. So that map is like an ethnic map of a historic ethnic map of Kenya. So it's as though, when you talk about
take a screenshot, people. Take a screenshot.
Yeah, if you talk about Banyamulenge and Barundi and Banyarwanda, it's like saying the Maasai of Kenya and Maasai of Tanzania. These are the same ethnic group, right? And then within that ethnic group, ethnic community, they speak the same language. Bahutu, Banyarwanda, Barundi, Banyamulenge, etc. all speak the same ethnic language. They have the same ethnic culture. Just like Maasai is in Kenya, Maasai is in Tanzania. Somali is in Kenya, Somali is in Somalia versus Somaliland versus Somali is in Ethiopia, or versus Somali is in Minnesota for that matter. Or Oromos. So you have this colonial borders which were drawn in 1885 that started to cut these countries in different pieces. So amongst Banyarwanda speakers, amongst Banyarwanda speakers, you have different, I would characterize them as clans. Just like in Luya, you have, Batachoni, my grandmother, and Bakabaras, who are my grandfather's people. I'm sure even amongst the Luo, you have the Luo Abasuba, you have Luos from South Nyanza, who are slightly different ethnically. Maybe they have different dressing, the language is slightly different. So amongst the Banyarwanda speakers, there was a quote-unquote ruling clan who obviously came with certain features. I mean, if you look amongst if you are in my own ethnic community, my dad's ethnic community for that matter, or my mom's ethnic community, the Maasai, you have Maasais who look like Ethiopians. They've intermingled with, with the Cushitic communities. Then you have some who look like you and I. Then you have some who look different. So amongst even the same ethnic group, you have sub-clans of people with different facial and physical characteristics. Or some of those divisions were because of maybe economic activities, right? So within the Banyarwanda speakers, you have the Tutsi and the Hutu. The Tutsi were cattle keepers. Same language, same community. They lived in the same range. They were part of the same social system, but of different socioeconomic classes. Just like you'd have Morans who are, part of the warrior class. Amongst the Rwandan, Kinyarwanda speakers, you had the Tutsi who are cattle keepers in the plains, and then you had the Hutu who are agriculturalists. That was the difference. That was the only difference between these two communities. Then the colonial government came. And what they did was they applied that word you used before, Micah, eugenics, to start to now classify people as different ethnic groups. So they came with the rulers, charts for shades of color, and they now split this community into different socioeconomic groups, saying the Hutu are different people, the Tutsi are different people, these people are the same, but they speak a different language. If someone came into the Maasai community and started splitting people by height, even brothers and sisters would be split, classified differently, right? So that's what happened in Rwanda. And as a result, this feeling of resentment towards the ruling class grew, and they were identified as Tutsi. A series of wars happened in both Burundi, Congo, and Rwanda, the homeland, as well as in Uganda. And over those wars, there was refugee crises. In fact, there's a big refugee community that came in the 50s to Kenya, Kericho. So, by the way, Banyarwanda are actually an ethnic group in Kenya, if you didn't know that. I knew that when they were doing the census. They came to our house, they asked, what ethnic community are you? I said, I'm a mixture of this and this. My mom is from Narok, my father is from Luya. They said, you're Luya. So they classified me. Then they asked my wife at the time, what is your ethnic community? She said, I'm from Rwanda. So which Rwanda? This one. Tutsi. Oh, okay. So now you're that. What about the child? I actually argued. I said she's half of one ethnic group. She's a quarter of my mom, quarter of my dad. So she should be classified as Rwanda. And by the way, by the time she was Rwandan speaking. Oh, they refused. They took the paternal line.
They go with the father.
Yeah, yes. which is also
African
debatable. But these are sort of the African dynamics, right?
Always go with the father.
Yeah. So these are the dynamics that have been in play at a large scale. So you then have this mass displacement, many wars that happened in the 1950s, 60s of Tutsis specifically being targeted by the governments in their communities. It culminated in 1994 when you had this seminal event that shocked the whole world. There was 3 months of mayhem when a genocide happened and 1 million people were killed at a pace recorded nowhere else in human history, and mostly by brute force, by
manual. Yeah, it wasn't guns.
Yeah, it was very well organized, and unfortunately, Rwanda has a nyumba kumi. In fact, that's where this system of nyumba kumi came from. So the local umudugudu, they call him, knows where everybody is from, who married who, and that is who had the records.
The list.
Yes. Of who
And
they
the
want
class
to.
prefect.
That's
Yes,
who they want
as
to
a prefect.
eliminate.
Yes, nenda
Yeah.
nenda here's a list.
Yeah. So then comes
ukienda kwa kina one mic uende kwa hii nyumba pale hawa ndio watu nataka. Si ni hawa.
Si hata hapa DMV tuko na jamii. Na jamii ni nyumba 10. So the nyumba 10 chair knows everybody. Where you're from, and if you've been living in that community for many years, they know everything about your background, who is your mother, who is
Right.
So then the killings started.
Correct.
It was very systematic, very well organized. It was a well-oiled machine. And they butchered the Tutsi population at record numbers, at record speed. And obviously it was based on this long-standing resentment. We can talk about like the reasons, but it's a long story.
Yes.
So this continues for 3 months, and then a former intelligence officer by the name of Kagame, at the time, he was the head of intelligence in the Ugandan army. So by the way, in fact, Kagame, his wife was even in Kenya. A lot of Rwandans found refuge in different cities.
Oh yeah, I
in
remember
Kenya.
that time because nilikuwa nafanya français.
Walikuwa wengi.
Alliance français.
Oh,
Parler français.
Parler.
J'étais là-bas Alliance français avec mes amis. Pierre Sedou. And we had some
a lot of instructors.
Not even that, like students, like some of the students.
I remember my French teacher was from Rwanda.
Yeah.
In high school.
There was this young hot from Rwanda, but like she was coming to
Français.
Oui. Pepe Le Pew.
You could have just
continue.
So the Rwandans in the who are by this time refugees, mostly in the countries around the north, Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania. There's a lot of Rwandans who now fled.
Rwandese.
Yes. Tutsi, specifically Tutsi, who fled the country.
Correct.
Right? Because obviously, I mean, you've just witnessed a lot of horror. Entire families were being wiped out.
Yes.
So, Arang Tagami is formed. Kagame was at the... no, in fact, he was not at the helm. He was the head of intelligence also in that army. By the way, this guy called Museveni, he's a Muhima. And Muhima, Bahima are part of the Banyankole.
They're Rwandese.
They are not Rwandese.
They're the Ugandan.
No, they are not. They are a cousin tribe.
Okay.
So it's when we think of Masai and Samburu, Kuyus and Merus.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So Bahima, I think even their language is mutually intelligible, but they are not Batut.
Not
they
quite.
Are ethnically related.
Yes.
So they had a lot of support also from the Ugandan side. So they charge into. They were literally racing against time to stop the genocide,
Mayhem,
heading towards Kigali. And after a few engagements, they made it to the capital and they took power. So then fast forward, between 1994 and the 2000s, these former genocidaires, they call them Interahamwe. They scattered. Of course, these people scattered in Interahamwe. It's pronounced Interahamwe. No, I've heard it being pronounced in Terra. Interahamwe. These people scatter into the diaspora. Now it's reversed. Most of them go to Congo. Many go to allies, French allies who are supporting them. So many went to Belgium. Some came even to the US. You remember the story with this guy called Rusesabagina. We will get to that later. But a lot of them went into the diaspora. Yeah, and the leaders, sort of some of them vanished into the woodwork. In fact, one was reported to have hidden in Kenya for many years. It was a big source of contention. So basically, the way they resolved the whole conflict around the genocide was they set up Gachasha courts, local courts, where the perpetrators were forgiven. Some of them were jailed, and then the ones who were the planners, those ones were tried in criminal courts around the world. some of them in the ICC and other places. But the result of that is that the switch was flipped. So now the Interahamwe were on the run, and the RPF took power under Kagame and is held power until to date. What subsequently happened, which is now where we are today, is the Interahamwe, when they went to Congo, they regrouped and formed the
M23.
Not M23. They formed the, what is it called? FARC.
Okay.
Yes. So they formed a variety of militias. So they formed, they supported a variety of militia groups within, particularly in North and South Kivu. On our map there, those border county provinces. North Kivu and South Kivu exactly border Rwanda and Burundi. On one side of Lake Kivu is South Kivu, on the other side is North Kivu. On the other side of the border, you have Rwanda and Burundi on the other side, which is predominantly a region that's populated by ethnic Tutsis. And these guys have been in those regions from time immemorial, in any recorded history. But Tutsi have been in that region of the world since the 11th century. There's recorded history of evidence that has been found that these people are ethnic or indigenous to those regions. But now you have this enemy force that has come in. And what do they start doing? They continue pushing that agenda to eliminate the Tutsi. And obviously, politically, what it did, it sort of, already there was tension, because in Africa, around the entire continent, you have inter-ethnic conflict. If you go to northern Kenya, it's Turkanas with Toposas on this side and Karamojas on the other side. Turkanas fighting with Merus over water. You have Somalis fighting over the border. So already those conflicts were there between the Batutsi and other ethnic communities, because they would say, because you are Tutsi and Rwandan speaking, it's like the Maasais are being told, you are Kenyans, go back. Right? Tanzanian Maasais being told you are Kenyans. If in Kenya we started saying Abasamia are not Kenyans, they need to go back over the border. You see, this border started playing this mind game on the population. So the ethnic communities around them had already got these historic grievances, because they are pastoralists. So there's also obviously conflicts over water, conflicts over land, but it was inflamed further by now the presence of this Interahamwe, who now formed these militias. Unfortunately, the Congolese government then looks at this situation, and with all their biases, instead of working towards integrating their local Tutsi population, they start working with the Interahamwe, former Interahamwe, and the associated groups.
By local Tutsi population, you mean people who...
Banyamulenge. Now the Banyamulenge.
Those ones
who are Apo Kivu.
The originals.
Yeah, the indigenous.
Siwa Rwanda.
No.
Yeah, but obviously, kuna sasa wale...
Ni kama vile wa Masai.
But remember, there are those who came from that side.
Yeah, kuna wale walikuwa refugees. Alafu kuna wale ni familia. Ni kama yule former deputy president wetu. Namkumbuka. Alikuwa anaitwa sio Rigiji. Ule wa Kibaki. Alikuwa anaitwa
the guy who guys everybody was saying had died.
Moody Awori's brother.
Yes.
Unakumbuka ndugu yake alikuwa MP Uganda at the same time. Yeah. So Wasamia pia hata Wajaluo si ni Walangi Langos etc going into Uganda. Mika.
Yeah, the thing is, what most people don't realize is that before these borders were drawn by Europeans.
Correct.
Right? And we follow history to Kisamahizo migrations, where we came from and where people lived next to each other. They were not divided mostly by tribe, but the land that was where they lived on, it was divided by the Europeans and drew the borders.
Yeah.
Now, among those communities that lived evil, they also intermarried a lot.
Yes.
And that is where you find me. I'm called a Chien and I'm a Luria. It's because
you're called what?
Where I'm from. Where I'm from, if I go 30 kilometers, niko Uganda.
Yes.
Huo ni mtu
If
wa
I go-
boda. Unaona?
if I go
Huyu ni
20
he's a
kilometers,
secret Ugandan.
niko Nyanza.
Correct.
Unaona?
Mm.
If I go south another 30 kilometers, na niko na Wasamia, because the Samias are the next group next to us. Like
Yes.
basically sisi na Wasamia tunaishi pamoja hivi, unaona?
Mm.
If I come up this side naenda kwa Wanga, where the Wanga kingdom ilikuwa, unaona? Like right now, like
Yes,
basically
yes.
these are rivers separating these different places of these different sub-tribes. Ethnically we are all the same, si wote ni Waluya. Si ongea hata baka Wajaluo huko kwetu usikie Kiluya, na sisi Waluya kwetu usikie Kijaluo. Si usikie Kiganda na tumeona na Waganda. Alafu tuko na Wateso bado hii side nyingine ya juu.
Na Wateso
the
wako pande
Tesos-
zote mbili ya boda.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wasamia na Wateso.
And then wako
na
side
Wanyoro.
zote mbili za boda. Yeah, the same thing. The same ukienda side ya Uganda, Busia Uganda, utapata kuna Waluya wanaishi.
Mi nimeenda
na kuna nini?
huku naitwa Tororo.
Tororo, yeah.
Nilienda huko Arusi. It was conducted in Luya, Luo, Kiganda na Kiswahili.
Yep.
Na Kisamia.
Because Tororo is basically like what? It's like 30 minutes from Malaba.
Yeah, from the border, it's not far. And then, by the way, Mika, this dynamic which you're describing was the same in Rwanda. Today, if you go to Rwanda today, I know this. I've been around Rwanda a bit.
We know.
This division between Bahutu and Batutsi, based on those colonial descriptions, by the way, does not exist.
Yep.
If someone who was like my, in my family, let me just say in my larger family, if I was to go with those classifications, me and my daughter will not even be classified the same, by the way. She's been here, I think you've seen her. She has a bit of her mom's characteristics, but she has my grandfather's skin color. So if she was in Rwanda, she'd be classified one thing. Her mother would be classified another thing. Me, I'd be classified another thing. So those classifications, and then over and above that, there was a lot of intermarriage between these so-called historic ethnic groups, which were different. Bahutu and Batutsi, there is no family in Rwanda today, including even the president's family, who cannot claim from both sides. It is not true that they are tall. It is not true that they are short. It's not true that they are brown. It's not true. These are the same ethnic group, just different
now
clans and features.
Explain to us the conflict.
Okay, so now we have
Because
the
now the history is there.
The historical context is
So
there are all these
M23
ethnic
yes,
communities.
because
So
what's going on and
the first Congo War came out of that tension between Interahamwe crossing over the border and the Rwandan government, because the Rwandan government was saying these are the people who killed our people, and you're talking about 1 million people being slaughtered. And then the Congolese government did not give them the leeway to pursue these perpetrators of genocide. If anything, I don't think it was intentional per se as government policy, but there was an acceptance of the community who integrated. So the Rwandan government sends in forces into Congo, and obviously it caused a war. First Congo War, second Congo War. Then obviously once that happened, the ethnic animosity grew even more against now ethnic Tutsis on the Congo side, right? The Banyamulenge so-called. That ethnic animosity, which was already there, it had already been planted during colonial period, it had grown, and now the mothership or the mother kingdom is attacking us in our own homeland from the perspective of the Congolese. So the ethnic animosity grew. When the war ended, that animosity now became attacks against ethnic Tutsis in South and North Kivu. So again, you had a refugee problem. Then there was a second war over the same issue. And then obviously now interest started kicking in, because it happens that North Kivu and South Kivu have the largest deposits globally, especially as this mobile technology has grown. Anything you hold and put in your pocket. I have my phone, my internet thing, my computers, now electric cars. One of the main components is rare. There are quite a number of rare earth minerals that are important, but you have copper for the wires, you have cobalt, tantalum. Those three minerals are what build all the technology we use here. So obviously a lot of money started coming in from foreign actors who want this resource. King of whom is this company called Apple. In fact, there are lawsuits against Apple computers because of how these minerals are mined. So it also now became a fight over resources. I heard this from an authoritative source that another reason the conflict has continued to spiral is actually now a conflict over land, and not necessarily owning or titling the land or conquering the territory, but establishing control over the local economy in South and North Kivu, because you need that land for production of food. Then underlying all that is now the ethnic dynamics. So there was the first Congo War, second Congo War, over all these things. Then in 2012, it culminated in a peace deal. The local Banyamulenge community had obviously formed militias who had this peace deal with the Congolese government, where they said, okay, for us to be reintegrated into this society peacefully, we're going to put down our arms, we'll go back to our communities. Those who are in the ranks will be integrated into the Congolese army. People will be given positions in government, and will live happily ever after. So it was supposed to hold. Then over time, those agreements were violated. March 23rd, 2012 was when that thing was signed. That peace accord was signed between the Banyamulenge militias.
What was the violation?
So the peace deal was on the basis of space in government. It's like our serikali ya Sumukate.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
so the North and South Kivu communities, being predominantly the Banyamulenge, had a peace deal with the government, saying.
And this one is in DRC.
This is now the government in Kinshasa.
In Kinshasa.
Yeah, by the way, this is not uncommon.
To provide context, so that we know
in
that
Congo. Yeah. So
yes.
an example which I think will be relevant. I wish Nani was here, would have given us very good. If Ali was here, would have given us a very good background on that. So the only way the coast of Kenya was integrated as part of our country
was an agreement.
There was a peace treaty between the British
Sultan
and the Sultan. So the terms of that treaty have held for now over 70, almost 100 years, right? So we agreed that we would integrate the Swahili as Kenyans, but more importantly, that would protect their religious rights, right? To practice Sharia law. That's why we have Qadis courts and all these other Islamic institutions. So there were some terms that were supposed to be adhered to in that treaty. One of which was mining contracts, which obviously would resolve the issue of these conflicts. Another one of which was trade. The borders would be kept open. There's a border in Goma. Those two cities, Goma and Bukavu, are right at the border with Rwanda and further down.
And apparently this Goma is actually closer to Nairobi than it is
to
one of those
Goma is 100 kilometers from Kigali. It's very close to the border, right? So you have Goma. So the borders, there was issues around the borders. There was issues about attacks, dealing with these militias. But the predominant ones were integration into the army, etc. Then that was supposed to solve all these issues. But what has happened since then, subsequent governments, starting with Kabila, who violated the terms, and in fact, Museveni and Kagame intervened and kicked out his government in what you'd term as a regional coup.
Uyu Kabila, the dancer?
No.
Kabila, Joseph Kabila.
Laurent. Yeah, Joseph Kabila. He was kicked out. And then M23 regrouped. They have been regrouping slowly. And this time, they have not just come as a rebel force. They have also come with a political arm and with significant support from Kigali, allegedly. Everybody is denying it, but tell us something we don't know. So that's the roots of the conflict. What happened over the last couple of weeks was they started marching south. Started with Goma, overrun. And what I know about my in-laws.
So before you go there, before you advance, quickly. So, because what we have seen is that we know that what has been projected has been some rebel group, M23, going around, and it's like they have been advancing. They've been attacking, but they've been making advances. You know, banning embassies. We know that we know that they banned the Kenyan embassy. We know that they banned, I think, the Rwandan embassy.
Yeah,
they banned embassies. That is one. But so there was this notion that South Africa was supposed to. There was something about troops, but South Africa was, I think, accusing Rwanda of having M23 and them whatever. Maybe you can address that, because there's a lot of stuff that
So what has happened? Yeah. So as M23 started to advance their attack, and actually throughout this period, since since one of the issues that was raised during the March 23 Accords, this peace deal, was they would have peacekeepers, MONUSCO, and they've been sitting there for the last 20 years, you know, keeping the peace, so that this rebel group does not attack the other rebel group across the road. That's what these guys have been doing for all this time. So peacekeepers have been sitting there all this time. When the more recently, when M23 started to regroup and fight, this was about 2 years ago. The warring parties, M23 and the interested parties like Rwanda and Uganda, agreed that Kenyan forces would be sent in to North and South Kivu as a neutral, not arbiter, but a peacekeeping force. Peacekeeping typically is just standing between the two warring forces to prevent them from fighting. Become a referee. Mwacheni kupigana. You see, so they try and keep the peace by disarmament. That was part of the peace agreement, but it was not kept. So the Kenyan forces come in, but apparently this guy called Tshisekedi had a different agenda. He thought
Tshisekedi is
the president of Congo.
Okay.
This guy has a different agenda. He wants to overrun M23. Obviously, I mean, this is his sphere of influence.
Yes.
And they all also want control of these mines, right? And obviously, you're being influenced by, you know, it's even reported, those people who are being paraded off like school children, the whites, the Romanians, so-called Romanians, apparently that was the Wagner group. Some mercenaries, some of them Russian, but they said Romanians to kind of cover it up. On top of that, you have mercenaries from other parts of Africa all operating there. So Tshisekedi now sets up, and the roots of this conflict is that Tshisekedi, instead of abiding by the accord, he recruits mercenaries, and even worse, he recruits in Rahamwe, who are in the minds of any Rwandan of Tutsi descent, in the minds of any Congolese of Tutsi descent, anyone. These are people who are an existential threat. And then they've also been attacks. These people have been bombing across the border, killing people, attacking villages. Then the Congolese government, instead of, over and above to aggravate the situation even more, they recruit them into the ranks. At that stage, I think the rubric was crossed. The decisions in Kigali were that these people, they want to finish us, as far as we are concerned. So then that's why you're hearing this kind of rhetoric. Just yesterday, President Kagame was saying, between you threatening me with aid and you threatening my life, what do you think I'm going to do? So to the Rwandan people, this Interahamwe group, this former genocidaires, are an existential threat, right? And now the Congolese government is in bed with them. So of course that it hits a nerve. So now you have what is happening. Then Tshisekedi kicks out the Kenyans because them they are not shooting, they are just enforcing the peace. He kicks us out. Says this Uhuru group, there were various processes. They tried it in Luanda, the Rwanda process.
Mukwende, in other words.
Yeah, they tried the Nairobi process because the forces were supposed to keep the peace while the political processes are going on. So that watu wakubaliane alafu sasa ukitoka hapo watu wanaishi vizuri. Then Tshisekedi decides, Kenyans, tokeni hapa. you're not serving my interests. And Congo happens to be part of the SADC. And they have this mutual military pact. If you attack one of us, you've attacked all of us. So SADC also now sends a force, but this is not a peacekeeping force. Apparently, their mandate is different. It's peace enforcement.
Unasema ni
In other words,
ni kama GSU.
Fanya
fujo uone.
So a fight breaks out. So you have one group, you have peace enforcers, you have mercenaries, genocidaires, and the Congo government, Congo army on one side. The other side, you have M23 and associated rebel groups with the backing of the Rwandan Defense Force. Allegedly. Don't know. Still saying allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
No, it's good to use the word allegedly because we don't want trouble. No, it's allegedly.
Nitafutwe baadaye.
Unajua huyu jamaa kuna vitasi sema.
There are fights.
Hata lala home.
There are fights which now break off. The fight now spills over a month ago. You have one group of people, mercenaries are there as soldiers of fortune. Genocidaires are there because they hate the Tutsis. The Congolese are there because they want the minerals and they want to kick out these people from the land where they sit. Then you have the M23, basically the Tutsi community, who are they are fighting for their existence.
Yeah.
Who do you think will win that fight?
Let me thank you for at least.
So that's the background, and then in the crossfire, these SADC people started shooting, and 14 of them were killed, were sent back home.
I think it's good to provide context and to educate, because let me tell you, and I think we spoke about this last week. There's so much we don't know because we are not taught. And we go by what we see. And sometimes media, depending on the lens through which you view it, it could be very skewed.
Yes.
So sometimes it's good to and that is why we always complain about not having, not being able, or not being in a. We are in a position to, but never tell our stories. Like for example, Kenyan media, we're in a position to, but we never tell our stories truthfully. We have to wait for independent journalists like these guys of
AP, CNN,
those ones John Alanamu's joined. African Independent something, to educate, and then now wamekuja unatufunza, and this is also let me segue into this, but I'm segueing because it also hits home, but Ali is not here because he is a vital, and we had this show about last week talking about the vetting. And trying to understand about the vetting of IDs and what people go through. And it is something that many of us did not know, that Kenyans
of Somali
descent, Kenyans, the vetting that they go through is ridiculous. But we would never understand or know because we've never gone through it.
Correct.
And pilipili tusioila haiwezi kutuasha. Unaget? Before we continue, some few comments over here. Let's see. Over here, Resilience says, Dr. Wangusi, I am from the West Coast. Angie is from the South. That has never stopped anything from happening. That's all I'm going to say.
As we are just saying, they're the same person.
Exactly. So Angie says, resentment fanned by the leaders who sow seeds of division is what led to the Rwandan genocide. And I think that one was started out. I don't know.
Yes.
Angie continues to say division should be avoided at all costs. Stefan Jagani. Yes, Mudiawori's bro had a bro MP in Uganda supporting yours. Maybe if I just go 10 minutes, niko Uganda. Stephen, uko wapi huko? Nyadorera.
Maybe
that is Kerea. Maybe knows that. Maybe Mika knows that.
Maybe Mika can tell us.
Nyadorera, Mika?
Mika will use a fair.
He
can use a fair.
Nyadorera.
In Nyadorera.
Not even fair. Mika can just do anafu inafika huko ndani. Angie says, Dr. Wangusi said it. The differences are man-made.
Man-made, yes.
Which is true.
The border, the border.
They are man-made.
Yes.
Yeah. And continues to say, when people fall into the trap of looking at everything with a tribal, racial lens, it leads to serious division, which we still do.
Yes.
Which we still do. Which allows us to segue into, and I'm just gonna, I just want to briefly mention, or we can talk about this because we've got, Baba's election chair, tomorrow, the election. And then to finally finish off, kuna KENDRICK LAMAR. But the Somali vetting, I think it's still a topic that is very important because there are two sides of the coin. The vetting, there are people who are for it, there are people who are against it. The people who are for it are because it is a tedious process for Kenyans of Somali descent. People who are against it are because of many of the terrorists are Somali, supposedly. Statistics show otherwise. And again, this is where we were talking about, and I think we had this conversation on the sidebar. And do you remember when we were talking about, like now, for example, when we were talking about, when we are listening to Jonathan Mweke, the PS for livestock, and how he broke down the need to vaccinate.
Yes, the animal.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple. But the communication from the government, we've always said, has
very wanting. It leaves you,
bro.
With
even like, wanting. Wanting is an overstatement,
you're like,
bro.
What? What is this?
It is. CT Muga said it best. They say, then people are left to interpret.
So and you come to your own conclusion.
You come to your own conclusion.
Yeah. And some of these conclusions are so biased because some of the narratives are Wasomali wananunua, Wasomali watakuja, Wasomali wanapewa ID, Wasomali ndio wanapewa security portfolio.
Docket, yes.
Docket. Somali watakuja, Somali watakuwa president. Somali watafanya hivi. And you're like, okay, hold on. Stop the presses. They are Kenyans. Anybody can be president. Nobody is entitled, no tribe is entitled to have a kitty.
Yes.
Anyone can vie for that kitty and get it. What is the problem with that? No. And sometimes the government. So President Ruto's declaration, roadside, just declaring, unfortunately leaves such a wide gap and a wide bath of insinuations. A lot of assumptions. A lot of discussions that mpaka now you are actually having elected officials from Northeastern come in to actually discuss how hard it is to even get an ID. And forget that. People of Somali descent living in Nairobi who have never lived in Northeastern or any of those counties
have to go through the same.
Have to go back.
They have to go back.
When I get
to get vetted.
Yeah, and I
from
think
that side so that they can get an ID in Nairobi.
Yeah, but you have to
briefly because I know I would have loved for Ali to be here for us to discuss
this was a very important one.
Yeah, because we had this discussion last week, and I don't know if Mika has any input. But I think just briefly.
But let me just tie let me tie out my what we were talking about with respect to like this Great Lakes conflict with what is actually happening in Eastern Africa as well.
Yeah.
So two things. So the first is that dynamic is the same, and we have to look back as to why do Kenyans of other descent, Kenyans of Luhya descent, Luo descent, Kalenjin descent, of whom, if we look at that map, some of us spill over to other countries. The Luhya are said to come from Eastern Uganda. And it is true because the Samia on both sides, so ethnically,
even
we are spread over.
Urana.
The Maasai, why is it that the Maasai are on both sides of the border, right? If you cross over from Manamanga over to the other side, utawapata Masai tu wale hata Waswahili huyu nani alikuwa anasema wanaenda mpaka huku chini nini Malawi sijui. When you go to the other side, the Oromo, who are the ruling ethnicity, quote unquote, the president of Ethiopia is Oromo, and they are in Kenya. So what happened with the Somali? How are they different from the rest of us? The truth is that they are not. But something happened in history that changed that perception.
War and all of that.
Yeah, so the shifter war is where that suspicion that you are the other started to
And
come
that's
about.
another thing.
But the truth is, if you look at Kenya Defense Forces, you look at the security apparatus, even the most visible, when we had the Westgate attack, when we had the 2007 clashes, when we've had the security issues, today, the security apparatus in Kenya, Noor, all these people, these are all Somalis. They're the ones who have in fact, they're the ones who fight hardest in the front lines, not only because they understand the terrain, but also because they have the most to lose. Because they're the ones who are being, Somalis are the ones who are being profiled.
Somali Kenyans.
Kenyans are being profiled adversely in their own country. Right? Yeah. So the law was then written to discriminate against Somali Kenyans.
Yes.
In other words, you have to prove your Kenyanness. It's the same thing that is happening here. Because I'm black, because I'm Latino, of Latino descent, because I'm of Asian descent, I have to prove my Americanness. Right? It's the same dynamic. I think it's the same dynamic. It's the same as what is happening in the Great Lakes region. That because I'm of Tutsi descent, I have to prove that I'm Congolese.
Yes.
Right? And so it's not as toxic in Kenya. We are not fighting. But we have to also be careful because you can see what happens.
Because what that means, and what that means is like when it comes to resources, technically the Northeastern is not even a stepchild. It's maybe that child that we don't want, but or an unwanted pregnancy because of the way they are treated, which is bad because you're just abandoned. It makes it hard. Like now you find that somebody got their first ID at 30 years old. 30.
Which means they cannot travel.
They cannot travel.
They don't have
get
the
a
same
passport.
mobility.
They can't career. Yet
because
there are people who are not even Somali Kenyans or whatever. Wako na M-Pesa. Wako na phone number. They have an M-Pesa, wanauza manjugu, whatever. Anyway, and I think that conversation needs to go
and by the way, when you look at the geographic spread of the Somali ethnic group, I from what I'm seeing, about 1/5 of Somalis are in Kenya, right? And they cover, if you look at the map again, they cover Garissa and Wajir County, or almost cover most of Marsabit. Garissa and Wajir County, the northern counties cover 70% of Kenya, right? Between Garissa, Turkana, Wajir. So they also even cover a large geographic spread of our country, right? These are Kenyans. They have always been there.
Yeah,
they were not brought. They were not forcefully migrated into Kenya. These are Kenyans, born. But why do they have to prove their Kenyanness any more than I have to?
Before we continue,
if you ask me, it's the same.
I will
dynamic.
echo Eric Latif's assertion of the no need for vetting. And Eric Latif said, what they need is the vetting that should happen at birth. Mtoto akizaliwa, majina yanachukuliwa. It's a Kenyan hospital. Mtoto amezaliwa. It goes to, there's a database for something, national planning, something, whatever.
Yeah.
Mtoto anachukuliwa. Tuseme ni Cecil, majina ni Cecil Omoshfire Omera, what is password? Born this. KKK. Inawekwa kwa database. That becomes permanent. Meaning, it doesn't matter where you go. Shule, bado iko. Because it shows you were born pale Mandera, ama Wajir. Or
there's truth to
that.
It's
back to this question of birthright citizenship, right?
There's truth to that, but then
let me finish. Then when it comes at 18, because the information is already database iko.
Yes.
At 18, I want to get my deed. My name is Cecil Omoshfire. Oh, Cecil Omoshfire.
No, but let me ask a question because I'm actually a bit ignorant on this topic. So let me ask this question.
No, we don't know much before we move to the next topic. But
so I remember when I went to get my ID. I think I went with my birth certificate, if I'm
and
not
your
wrong.
and your father or mother.
My father and my mother's
Yes.
ID.
Yes,
Right?
that is a requirement.
Yeah, that is a requirement. So what additional vetting?
Living certificate unaenda na nini because you're already 18.
Yeah, but
A
now,
lot of times umemaliza.
so what is the additional requirement that they are talking about
Them.
in Somalia?
Somali-
With
Sasa
with Somali,
They
with
want-
Somali
wanakuja
Kenyans.
na idea
Babu.
nyanya na babu.
Yes.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
you're now proving that your lineage
Your
are
lineage.
Kenyan, not
Yes.
you. Your
lineage.
No, but that's
is
not
Kenyan.
by law.
But
Because
boss,
Kenyan
boss,
law, like, if you look at Kenyan,
oh my
in
God.
our immigration law says,
Bro.
two things. If you are born in Kenya, Kenyan airspace, you're Kenyan. Whether you are born,
okay, so
hata kama mzazi wako alikuwa nini ama
On
nini,
paper-
ukizaliwa Kenya.
Bro, on paper,
on
Yeah,
paper,
and
sense.
then the other thing, let me tell you, the other thing it
That's
says,
paper.
which is also really interesting. Nilikuwa pale immigration, kuna mtu aliwahi niambia hii story. If a child is found who is of assumed age under the age of 8,
they are Kenyan.
they just assume.
They are Kenyan.
Eh. Yani ukipatikana tu mtoto nini anazurura mahali na hana mzazi
Yes.
na uko chini ya hizo miaka, you are assumed to be Kenyan. Okay, so that's how you get citizenship by birth.
Yes.
So why do now Somalis have to prove
Sasa,
if you are
and that
Sasa,
that
that's
right
that's
there.
the part
That's where the
that's
problem
the part
is.
that was being removed. But remember, it stems back. The history of it stems back to the whole shifter wars, all of
and
that.
it's something. And it's a
then
history that
then-
we need to
then
know.
Then people also supposedly the Somalis or people of Somali descent who are from outside or not descent or
They are
so the
falsifying.
outside Somalis coming in, paying to get papers and so on and so forth. So there was some sort of how do I put it? People who collaborated internally. So to avoid all of those so-called things, they added those extra steps.
no, but
of
that is
vetting.
happen. But if you ask me, that would be also. I know families. In fact, I know individuals. Some of my friends who I call by name. That, in fact, I have two good friends who I know. Their parents are from Uganda. Some,
Yes.
the ethnic groups at the border.
Yes.
In fact, mmoja ni Mjaluo. By the way, Mjaluo from Tanzania.
Shiraki.
Baba alivuka mpaka
Yes.
na kuwazalia Kenya
Yes.
ndivyo wapate makaratasi.
Yes.
The same things that are happening here. And then
Correct.
you also have that dynamic
Correct.
where people marry.
But
And
my
then-
friend,
Yes.
Because
Pale-
without birthright, then Kenya has another dynamic. Without
northeastern border, that's a different story.
Yeah, because
lakini border ya northeastern sio refu kuliko hizi
It
zingine.
doesn't
no,
matter.
but the whole point of it is
It
that
doesn't
kuna
matter.
Msomali
It is
anakuja
that.
kutoka Somali.
Yes,
anaingia
whatever the
Kenya,
narrative is.
na then now anachukua citizenship.
Wanasema analipa.
Yes, either that or they are proving or
See,
whatever.
that's
Whatever
the
the
narra-
case is.
that's the
And
narrative.
The narrative.
That's the
That's the
narrative.
narrative.
No, and then there's
Wanalipa.
there's also another
There's
issue.
a narrative over there that
There's
these guys
also
are-
another
they're coming back and forth and you can't prove who's who.
there's another issue. There's actually another issue that's in on both sides of the border, but then it's more significant on the Somali side of the border. So you have two very large refugee camps. The difference is the refugee camp Kakuma has predominantly ethnic communities from South Sudan. So those ones are known. Those are not Kenyan ethnic communities. On the Somali side, you have what is it called? What is that refugee camp called?
Dadaab?
Dadaab.
Yes.
Kakuma on one side, that one you can control. But by the way, I grew up in Eldoret. If you go to Kapsoya today, if you go to Lavington, by the way, go to Junction Mall, the dominant ethnic group there is now South Sudanese, right?
Yeah.
I even hear the South Sudanese, the most busy flight from Nairobi, anywhere in the world is to Juba. Every hour they're flying in and out. So have
That's
breakfast with your family in Kenya, dinner with your family in Juba. But the point is, I guess based on what seem like legitimate reasons, but also this sort of underlying ethnic
there's a lot
discrimination.
there's
right?
a lot of it, and also the vetting, the extra vetting. Other than this one, which is really, to me, I think I would venture to say it's a special case with the Somalis, and that is why you see that they're now trying to go away from it or move away from it, because it is actually discriminatory. I get part of what they were trying to do. There was good behind what they were trying to do, but they didn't do it the correct way, if you ask me. Okay. Now, border communities tend to have these sorts of vetting. Their vetting is different from a chap who's living in Nai, for lack of a better word. Now, if you happen to be the guy who's living in Nai, na umesema weni mtu wa kutoka that border community, guess what happens? Unarudi back to the border community.
Uende uvetue huko na watu wanakujua.
Yes, you chief huko ndiye anakujua. Si chief wa Kibira. Ama chief wa Makadara.
Okay, let me throw let me throw a spanner in the works. So it seems like a good thing, but now the timing. This is why now it has raised a furor. Because it's being done for political reasons.
Yes,
kuna huyu jamaa amepoteza kura za Central Kenya.
We're not denying.
Kuna hiyo timing.
Yeah, there's that timing, but also in as much as that timing, but then also I think it gives an opening to have a serious discussion on the neglect of our brothers and sisters, what we go through, because like you said, kuna watu wengi walienda they applied, they got their father ID, their birth certificate, and they got ID. There are guys who got their IDs when they are 30 and Somalis. But anyway,
some people still don't have it because they can't get it.
Yeah, they can't get it.
You can't go get nyanya na babu.
Yes. But anyway, that we'll continue with that.
We can't.
And last question. Hii ni swali ya mwisho kabisa on this topic. Let's just say 2%, 3% fall through the cracks, and they are Somalis from Somalia or Somaliland or from Ethiopia.
Yes,
and they make it across the border. Shida iko wapi? Because hata sana hawa ni watu wako na pesa, wanakuja wanamwaga pesa Kenya.
Now here is
hata nini South Sudanese, the ones you find in Lavington, these are people who are investing in our country. So
some of those jokers are not investing in it. They're investing.
Mtaanza kusema ati
up. We have seen what
mtaanza kusema wamekuja kuchukua mali zetu.
I'm talking about
wamekuja hapa kupanga sijui terrorism.
No. 1 minute.
South Sudanese wamefanya nini? Hakuna kitu South Sudanese wamefanya.
Okay.
They have just invested in our country.
If you can't answer in 1 minute, I'm going to kill this.
Okay, so
umesema wameshoot nani?
No. I just in your regular day to day, a lot of them actually posture, carry guns, do all sorts of different things. And I'm just telling you,
Who?
The same South Sudanese guys.
They have guns on them. But you can own a gun in Kenya. It's not a.
But sasa now owning a gun and then using it, that's a different thing. And then being protected. There are some who are.
But if you attack, how does he end up shooting you? It's not like they are going to rob you.
Okay. I don't know how we can have this thing.
Okay. Let me listen.
Let me move on to the Somalis. The Somalis part of it, and that's the myth, is that these are the same people who are terrorists and. They're the ones who are doing all these sorts of things, and history has shown this and blah blah blah. And I think that is very far from the truth. But that's where the hidden is it the veil that's hidden? That's how they are justifying a lot of these things. And it goes back again to shifter time. When people were crossing over and shifting back and forth, and then killing or running this side, then they killed, and they come this side, they kill, and that's where all of these things stem
suspicion
from. And then over time,
no, but in some means, I think in some means this is one of those cases where they throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Correct.
Because there are actual cases where maybe there's a Somali from a particular clan, he was sheltered, and then now the government says, deal with all of them the same way, right? Which is not fair.
And remember, during Uhuru's time, what happened? Once these people rounded up and put in stadiums, I mean, so if you look
that
at
kind
it,
of nativist,
it is so sad, and it is so.
It shouldn't be the case.
I think we should move on from here. Let me read comments and then we switch. Okay, so Angie says, when people fall into the trap of looking at everything with a tribal racial lens, it leads to serious division. Then Stephen Jagani says, no one will win that fight. Abdi Nasser Mohammed says, in front of God, we are all equal. Why we hate each other cause of Kabila Fulani or why should we hate each other because of Kabila Fulani? Let everyone be treated the same. No one should be treated differently. Abdi Nasser, you're very, very, very correct. Angie says, hey, Angie, what?
Opinions.
Angie says, a dose of healthy suspicion is good given what happened at Westgate and Dadaab refugee camp, to avoid infiltration from within of people who hate the country or have historical grudges. Okay, let me end there. Then I think Angie made a comment that says also Garissa University. I think remember the
but who are the biggest casualties at Garissa?
I'm just giving Nini. Okay. And Stephen Gajani says, and the amount of potential that region has is crazy. It's economic potential is what he was talking about in terms of the region around.
So my last comment before we move on is very simple. There's a guy who was being interviewed by Eric Latif on his new show.
Yes.
And he said that the suspects who have been caught are not Kenyan. Majority, they're foreigners.
Okay.
But who
is being radical? Okay, so Kenya.
And by the way, and I think we had this conversation that some of the guys who have been radicalized and to join Al-Shabaab are not even Somali.
Yeah, we've had people from Western
Kenyans,
Kenya.
Yes. Mogekoyo.
Yes. Okay,
so
why
I think
we now extra vetting
and that's why we need to have this conversation.
You guys who are Nini, you need to be vetted. Yes, you guys, you need to be vetted.
As we move on, Baba's election. Before we have got 2 more topics to cover.
Yeah.
So there's Baba election as AUC chair. I'll just throw it out there, please.
So that one again, interestingly, it's also now tied to this Congo Great Lakes conflict. Something just happened. I believe it's just in the last few days. The SADC bloc sent a letter to all its members. These are foreign ministers.
Told them
to vote
this way
for the Mauritian who is part of SADC.
Yes, and that's 16 countries.
Yeah, and I think most pundits, observers are saying that the origin of that is SADC is trying to assert that they do not need, but they're not happy with the way the East African bloc is dealing with the conflict in the Great Lakes, because they had wanted East Africa to be, because it would have been a neutral arbiter, right? Or it would have looked It would have looked as though one of your own is the one who is managing the situation. So had they been a more aggressive force, and then there's also criticism coming saying that you have sent not Kenyan Defense Forces, but Kenyan Police Special Forces to Haiti as a hostile force. Right, to manage gangs there, but when you send them to the Congo, you're sending them as peacekeepers. That doesn't seem fair. And then because of the South African intervention, it has brought this kind of divide between SADC and East Africa. Eastern Africa, the Eastern African bloc. Mind you, Rwanda and Burundi, Tanzania as well, Congo as well, are part of the East African community. But Congo, I believe, and Tanzania are also part of SADC.
Yes.
So it's brought this divide where SADC is now trying to assert or to use that as a political tool to say, if you don't support our position on the Great Lakes region issue, we are not going to support your position on the AU. So, Baba we'll know. In fact, it's not even in the next 24 hours. I think in the next 6 or 7 hours, we should know what the results are.
Is it?
But apparently it was done.
It's today.
Yeah, it's today. Saturday being now today, tomorrow. So apparently, this circular was sent unofficially. It was not sent as an official position of the secretariat. It was just sent as an advisement. But it was also sent
an opinion from somebody.
An opinion from the SADC secretariat to kind of make a statement that if you don't support us on the Great Lakes issue, we're not going to support your candidacy. What that though will do, because this election, it's a winner takes all. 33 votes out of 52, I believe. Because I think 4 countries, Burkina Faso, Chad, etc. Not Djibouti.
What you're talking about, the ones that can't
the
vote?
countries that are not voting because of
They are, I think,
they're like
6.
4 or
I
5.
think they are about 6.
Yeah, in
About
mostly
6.
in the from the West African bloc. So, what there are 3 candidates. There is Raila Amolo Odinga. So I have to say this. I have to say this. You know,
I thought they were
this is
4.
my pitch.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
There are 3. There are 3 leading contenders. Oh, I think there are others, but there's 3 leading contenders. Guy from Mauritius, a guy from Djibouti, who apparently is a seasoned diplomat that the francophone countries and Arab bloc countries are supporting. The Sahel region countries are supporting. And then there is our very own Raila Amolo Odinga. I am very proud of one thing. So internally, we have all sorts of issues. Issues with Ruto and why he's doing what he's doing. But if you think about how the rest of the world or the rest of Africa looks at us, they don't have the same. They're not wired about these political issues in Kenya the same way we are. But we've shown a certain political maturity. Even if Baba doesn't win, we hope he does. Best wishes. But even if he doesn't win, you can imagine what the rest of Africa is seeing. That here are bitter contenders for the same seat who have come together as one people because they want to support their countryman who is of a different ethnic group to win this seat. That is not happening anywhere else. I think that's the one thing I'm very proud of. It's the one big win for Kenya, regardless of whether Baba wins or not. If you ask me, we've made a very strong statement to Africa and the rest of the world that when we are out there, we are one people, regardless of our own internal squabbles.
Yeah.
It's a show of political maturity. I mean, where else in Africa can you have Tshisekedi going to, if it was Congo, let's just use Congo as an example. There's this girl called Nanga, who is representing the M23. He won't even talk to him, and he's his own countryman. But in our case, bitter rivals who fought over it in court, but he's supporting. So that's, I think, what Africa sees, and I think that's something we should be proud of.
I think we shall see now. Comments?
No,
because Ali abandoned ship.
No, it's okay. Tunaweza
Hii
endelea.
topic ilikuwa ya Ali, but I have one question. Niko na swali kabla tujaendelea because hiyo alama mimi nitajitoa kwa sababu mambo hapa hata si. I have one question.
Yeah.
So if let's say there's 2 scenarios here, we'll know this in 6-7 hours. If Baba wins, what happens? How does that affect the political situation at home? If he doesn't, what happens?
I think that if he wins, then that keeps him quote unquote on ice, or should I say on hold, where he's not interfering with the domestic situations, right? Supposedly, or at least that would be the thought.
Yeah.
Right. And then if he doesn't win, then now he's free to go back and wear his opposition hat and come out swinging. And by the way, it's opposition from majority in parliament type of situation, right?
Yeah.
Now, right? Which came through in the last couple of days and opens other things. Now, it doesn't mean that this majority thing is still not going to be used when he's sitting under AUC when he wins it.
But he'll be out of people kind of.
No, but you see, here is the thing. The fact that he's out doesn't mean he's the fact that he's out of sight doesn't mean that he's not in
it doesn't mean he's out of mind.
Yes, correct, because there's still things that are happening over here, right? And it's all a chess game, and it's a chess game leading up to 2027 and or get you out prior.
How long is the term?
It's 4 years.
It's 4 years.
So he'll be 84 if he wins.
I think it's 4 years. No, but you see, there's nothing stopping you from quitting.
No, but he's not going to leave AU chair to come and run for president in Kenya.
Not?
Do you think? You think he would do that?
Why not? What is stopping him?
Nothing stops him,
correct.
But why would you do that?
No, but I'm just saying
that
there is nothing stopping him from you don't know. That's basically where I'm saying is like, so at this point all we can do is speculate, right? We can say that then maybe now if he's busy, or you line up someone else to now take the mantle and be the one who whoever the other person is, and that person would be the one who is now going. Maybe you look at a young Sifuna and you tell him, boss, we are over here pumping things into you. When they go with Godspeed, you are our chap. I don't know. Or maybe you tell Otinda Molo, boss, Ebu go dust off your coats. It had dust. Ebu urudi tena and come back and we have you. I don't know. I'm just
because Nyongo, Professor Nyongo is in an acting capacity, but he's not.
He'll never.
He doesn't have the gravitas of a presidential.
He will never run. And the thing about it is not that he can't, but to me, I think he's been overtaken by events. And then also, for him, his health is not exactly the best.
The best, yeah.
Sequel buyer. And that position is not.
And then Baba doesn't also have age on his side. So 80.
Yeah, he doesn't have.
By 2027, he'll be 82.
Yeah, he doesn't have. He does not have age on his side. You're very, very right. So it could be that, this is the last hurrah where you say, hey, and then at this point, tunapanga political chess, who we're going to put in place because, or maybe do a Biden, as they say, Biden, basically somewhere halfway, I'll give
hand over the mantle.
Hand over the
mantle to my.
But that was a coup. That was not handing over the mantle. That was a coup.
Anyway, I'm just saying that there's so many ways you can look at this, but the bottom line of it is that if this guy doesn't get it and he's now free, hapa domestically, kuna watu wanatetemeka. That's all I can say.
Yeah, if he doesn't get it, there's a lot of people.
Like,
because he still has energy for 2027.
I can't wait to see that. Now,
yes,
Super Bowl.
Ebu read some comments tusikie kama Angie yako wapi?
Kwani umebuluna Angie wewe?
Angie from huko.
I think he likes Angie.
Yeah, by the way.
That's why I told you
Angie from the south.
I told you that Angie was
resilient. Is used from California.
Was Angie and Angie was resilient, as was Dr. Wangusi. Then he separated himself.
Yeah,
Aliji separate. You didn't hear him.
Multiplicity.
Yeah, Aliji separate.
A son of a twang, guys.
Yes, he just separated over here. Then
wanasemaje juu ya maneno?
Yeah, over here. So Stephen Jagani says that sisi we got our ID while we were in high school. Tulimaliza fourth form na tuko na kipande. Asante sana Highway Secondary School. Ndio wale wasewa ma hockey sticks. No, hockey sticks was Jamu. Highway walikuwa wasewa board. Okay, then Abdi Nasser Mohammed was making a comment back to Angie about him basically saying that
for your information, Somalis are the biggest casualties.
Yes,
when it comes to
Al-Shabaab, and he's one of those who are affected, and because he lost close family members. Paul Sarah Abdi Nasser. Then he also has a comment, I think, about Baba. He says, Baba Honorable Odinga is a visionary, bold, and progressive leader. And today, Africa stands at a pivotal moment of its history as a continent, ready to be steered to greater heights by a great statesman. Very, very, wow, that's almost sounds AI written. Stephen Jagani says, timing is just flat wrong. This should have been done kitambo sana. Obviously, Kasongo is looking at this from a populist angle. Populism. Na Kasongo, same what's up. To the next topic.
Super Bowl. Najua wase wa Dallas.
Mimi hapa mimi ninajitoa kwa
sababu
ya Super Bowl.
Hauna TV?
Hold on. Mika.
Me, I was focused on staying warm,
Mika, ouch. Mika met to abandon.
Yeah, Mika just said don't.
Mika alitoka kwa hiyo sababu zamani.
Aya sawa. Aya, tokende. Super Bowl. For those of you who do not know, the Super Bowl happened last weekend.
Yes.
And by the way, big shout out to my nephew. He turned 20-something. It was his birthday, February 9th.
Na mulikula mbuzi bila kuni-invite.
There was no mbuzi.
The mbuzi didn't come.
No, there wasn't. Ni mababi. Ni akina baba hanya ni mababi. Ni wase wa madhagu. Anyway. So it was a good time. There were so many, prior to the game, there were very many predictions. People are looking at Lamar getting, at least his first Super Bowl spot.
Yes.
Josh Allen got the MVP. Many people say it was the DEI MVP. Many people say that.
Yes.
Let me put it this way. Not many people, but there are sectors that say that it was DEI. I'm saying DEI so I can trigger Kinanji and resilient. DEI. DEI MVP.
I think resilient is resiliently resisting you.
Yeah. No, ata comment ngoja utaona. So, So there was that. So then, Super Bowl comes. If you guys remember, in 2023 Super Bowl, it was Chiefs versus Eagles.
Yeah, they lost.
And the Eagles lost.
Correct.
On what many call a bogus penalty. Pass interference, 35-33. 35-38. It was a 3-point loss by the Eagles. It was very painful. It was Jalen's first Super Bowl appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, this time they acquired Saquon Barkley from the Giants.
Short, stumpy runner.
Hey, my guy.
I ran straight. You didn't run sideways.
Who had 2,000 yards this season, plus rushing. Anyway, wamefika Super Bowl, so there was also KC, Mahomes. The wife has retweeted Donald Trump.
Oh.
Yes. But let me also say that Kerea, it looks like Saquon's fiance, her old tweets have resurfaced using the N-word. Anyway, it was a game where we were thinking, wow, who is the reffing crew? And the reffing crew that reffed that game, the Chiefs have won, if not all, almost all games
with that crew.
So
do you think that it's because of the crew's calls, or is it because the Chiefs are good?
Let us just say the Eagles dominated the game.
No. I'm just saying based upon that stat that you gave, because you gave the stat.
Yes.
So I'm talking about the stats. I'm not talking about the game.
The refs.
Okay.
The refs.
Sawa. You're basically a Ravens fan.
Yes, of course.
But anyway, endelea. So the Eagles won.
The Eagles won.
Yes.
Huge. But before they won,
yes.
First half, the way the game started, you're like, Allah. Anyway, but we knew that the halftime show had been announced.
Correct.
And we knew it was Kendrick Lamar.
Yes.
K. Dot.
Yes.
We didn't know what to expect.
A dot with a K.
We didn't know what to expect.
It was a dot with a K.
The only thing that I know that many people knew was that he had done a diss track against Drake.
Yes. But by that time he was coming in, msee alikuwa
amechafua glami ityo
5.
Ebu idhano. Say idhano in the Luo. In the Luo.
A beach.
The guy had come at that a beach.
Yes.
Some people are gonna mishear that.
In one
a beach.
In one sitting.
In one sitting,
yeah,
a beach.
5.
Grammy Awards, a beach.
He had won 5 Grammys.
Anyway,
which is quite a bit.
It is quite a bit, because I think the next, because
rapper.
even Lauryn Hill the one time in one sitting had chappered 5 Grammys.
Yeah,
anyway,
quite a bit.
Performance started. The performance has been the talk
of town.
After, during, post, and after to now.
And it depends.
But before even the performance,
yes.
There's also another dynamic in play. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, it was also looked at as a red state versus a blue state duel or battle.
I never looked at it
that was also an undertone.
I didn't look at it
so
that
they're
way.
saying, your folks were saying the president was there.
The president was there.
But the Mandarin, no. The Mandarin had actually, in a previous interview, the Mandarin had said him is supporting KC because he likes the wife. Because the wife retweeted him.
Who?
Mahomes' wife. Yes.
Yeah, I did read one commentary where, that was kind of the undertone.
No. Let me tell you.
Red state versus blue state, and the blue state.
I mean, I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
And then with all the
so
kind of cultural undertones.
But, because here's the thing. So we have pretty much two black QBs. But one really is considered black. Jalen Hurts.
Is the other guy black?
You see? Mahomes.
Mahomes
Mahomes is black. He ain't white. Let's not trigger kina Angie and them comments.
Angie Kwanzaa says that the Chiefs lost because of DEI.
What of DEI?
How?
That's what Angie says.
Diversity.
She says the Chiefs lost because of DEI. And then Resilience says DEI is dead and buried.
alongside USAID.
Anyway,
These
when
two
the-
people
when the-
were
when
the
the-
same person.
when the
They're
Mandarin
very fun.
when the Mandarin
Yeah.
supported Chiefs, and then Chris Jones, defensive end, goes to Salimia Trump. Then he got injured. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. K. Dot performs, becomes a talk of town. So many subliminals, Uncle Sam or whatever. There are very many people. Here's the interesting thing. Me, sometimes when I'm driving and the kid, they're not like us. Unaweka hiyo wimbo. Watoi. Then I'm like, I'm like, when the hell did you land? Because they do that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's all manner of innuendos, supposed storylines. They've just been cropping up, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah, but I think that game was kind of a microcosm of the division which is in the country.
it was
And sort of
but,
the cultural.
and by the way, before we continue, you know, like the NFL, all season I think they would have that end racism on the emblems and also on the fields on the end zones. But this time they said they're gonna remove it.
Yeah, because there's now a reverse cancel culture that's going on, right? So you have this president who has come in, guns blazing. You know, you can color it whatever way you want, whether you want to call it
The
dog
NFL bent
whistles.
the knee. NFL bent the knee.
But
Kiss
yes,
that ass.
by the way they did. But what is essentially happening is that you have a right-wing white supremacist government that is trying to assert the supremacy of this one race over the others. And then there's a backlash. Obviously, like, it's going to come in different ways, but there's a cultural backlash that's coming out. And I think that, well, the outcome of the game, you know, depends on like the skill of the players. But then the fact that, you know, there was kind of poetic justice there.
Not only
And
was
then on
that,
top of that, you have this cultural performance that almost,
when you talk of
you know,
poetic
was done
justice,
to drive
you
a point home.
you have a performer
Mm-hmm.
whose whole entire squad was black. Uncle Sam was black.
Oh yeah, and then the idea of having Uncle Sam as, you know, black man.
And when I say Uncle Sam, no pun intended.
No, but
Samuel L. Jackson.
but he's called Sam. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So-
Uncle Sam,
Hey,
So whoever orchestrated that whole,
aka Nick Fury.
yeah,
I mean, it was just
it had
awesome.
a lot of
it had a lot of undertones around like black on black violence.
Mhm.
They were not
gangs
undertones.
and-
They were there. It was right
The
there.
It was right
undertones
there.
about
And Uncle Sam
belonging,
was
you know, the
fingering
value of
door.
the flag.
Every single time he would open the door and tell you, okay, this is exactly what's
Wega
happening.
there.
He's like, this is what's going on. And
Cheza kama wewe.
and
Cheza kama wewe.
yeah, and guys were not understanding. It's like, hey, you may Peter. And,
Yeah.
and I think it's because...
and then this feud against the system,
Yes.
you know,
Man.
Against the Mandarin,
Drake.
the orange
And
guy.
I would-
Drake being
I would
oh the
say-
Mandarin,
When I say the Mandarin, I'm saying the orange.
oh, you
the
mean
orange, agent.
orange,
Yes.
Yes.
Agent Orange.
agent,
Yes.
Yes.
and the whole point of it is that for us who have lived in this country for a long time
Yeah,
and have seen the black and the white thing,
Mhm.
or you've colored race, Angie hasn't, or you've colored race, you see some of these things, and you know some of them you are picking immediate, others you had to go back, sit, then go unapiga rewind, select a massive, unaicheck, unasema, oh my god, no, he did not. He said,
But-
and by the way,
Mhm.
a lot of those things white guys are not gonna get. Siku Obaya.
Yeah,
They are
but
not
he
gonna get them.
the other thing to think about is what I said earlier with respect to, you know, this animal called white racism. It's kind of metamorphosized over the years, and what Trump has done is that he kind of made it okay just because it's him, right? And he's not answerable to anyone. He's politically very powerful. The system tried to hold him to account, but that didn't work. Then now he's the president. So he made it okay for white folks to like feel a certain way because of how he spoke and how he's very abrasive. But then, you know, when they have tried to do the same things, and then now he has kind of a partner in that agenda, Elon Musk. So you have like poor white folks trying to like, do the Nazi salute and end up losing their jobs and things like that. But these two guys have made it okay. But my sense, back to what I said at the beginning is, to me, these are the kicks of a dying horse. Because if it has got to the point where only the very wealthy have a license to behave a certain way, and then when you see this kind of really brazen aggression and brazen racism kind of coming up to the surface, it means that it is under pressure. Right,
but
it's really under pressure, and the status quo is
it's interesting.
Being
you're
pushed
talking
out
about
of.
racism when you're talking about this guy in the White House and his people, right? But the lines of being affected are not on race. The lines of people being affected by the policies and
like USA.
It's not
interestingly,
race.
the
It is
USA
not race that is coming into play.
No,
it's everybody. Just look at what's happening with the,
this
federal government, and so the race part. If that was the goal, I think you're missing the. He's missing the point.
No, he's not. He's not. It's a very small sacrifice for them. Having corn, for example, is grown in Kansas City, Iowa, in Kansas and Iowa, in the Midwest. So for them to put American farmers on the hook, because now they can't send yellow maize. Remember, we used to eat yellow maize when there was drought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if those farmers, they're not a large enough block to have any effect, right? So those are going to be casualties of this war. The way they look at it is very adversarial. We have our side, they have their side. They are going to be casualties on both sides. Our casualties are going to be
So you're saying it's a race war?
It is absolutely a race war. Okay. That is what is being, but it's so because it's no longer acceptable.
I'm saying if the aim was
right,
if the aim was race, but
the aim is race and the casualties.
The aim is race, and the people who are being hit here are your own people. Are you saying?
But those are casualties. Those are the casualties,
yes, but
right?
that so-called casualty of war. Are you saying that the percentage is so small that it's not going to be enough for these same people who are being hit to make enough noise for you to?
But in any society where you have these kinds of dynamics, the example which has also come up, funny enough, with U.S. policy with regards to South Africa coming up with this executive order on giving Afrikaners right of citizenship or refugee.
The guys who don't want to come here.
Yeah, so
and don't want to leave SA, no matter how
South
bad
Africa, even during the height of apartheid, still had poor whites, right?
Correct.
They were affected, but because the system has it has classified you buffers, yes, within a certain group. There's a lot of stigma. So if you are sympathetic to the African cause, it would turn on you. So even within white Americans, there's someone I spoke to. I was going to say who he is, but there's someone I spoke to who he's a moderate. I don't know what his political persuasion is. Possibly he could have been a Republican, but this guy left his wife because he found out she participated in the January 6th riots.
Deservedly
amongst white Americans. Families are being broken apart, right? And people are being stigmatized because, now you're not on our side anymore. Trump has kind of inflamed this racial flame again. But I think my sense is that they are a dying breed. And those are the kicks of a dying horse, the way I put it earlier, that these people they're on their way out, right? So yeah, but it's interesting to see how the country will turn out, because some of the systems that they're trying to dismantle, they're so entrenched, right? We're already here. There is no way we're going. You're not going to spend billions and billions of dollars trying to deport all these people.
I was telling somebody, like I was telling one of the guys, I was telling, the White House has an African emperor. And they're like, what do you mean? Kamala? I'm like, no, Elon Musk. America is about to experience how some African leaders are.
No, they're already experiencing
No,
it.
no,
right?
no, no, no.
Yeah.
No, bado.
Bado.
Bado. You know, we lived with some of us lived with Moi. We lived under Moi, under the
Yeah.
Moi rule, MO1 rule.
Mm.
Not 2002 career. No. We experienced MO1. We're even saying at the MO1 at the
Ukisema tu, "Mwe."
wewe nyoho
No,
kulikuwa na mwa Kenya.
No, we're told by our parents.
Yes.
You cannot, in fact, there were rules of operation. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot leave this house
Mm-hmm.
and say A, B, C, or D.
D.
If you want
Now,
to,
usitaje
or
Moi.
if you want to,
Where?
or think you might want to, do it in this house. If you. But the rules of engagement, ukitoka kwa hii mlango, hizo ni vitu usemi.
You think about it.
Na huwezi.
The Jama is ignoring court orders.
Yes.
Here in Stato,
Mhm.
when was the last time you had a president ignore court orders in Stato?
Yeah, but this is when Americans are realizing
No,
that
no,
the
no.
whole time,
Daktari, hold
all
on.
this has just been a gentleman's
Daktari.
agreement.
No,
Yeah.
Daktari. When was the last time you had
A president.
ignore in Stato? Ignore court orders or his administration. We know, you know where court orders are ignored? 254.
254.
Yes. I will give an example of 254.
Mm.
Unaambiwa hizi hii ni kufunga nyama, hii whatever ni kufunga nyama, whatever.
Mm,
Gazeti
gazeti ya kufunga nyama,
whatever, yeah.
Mm.
Like a guy is being summoned to court 7 times and then appear. And we're talking about a higher ranking official like in the police, not president.
But
Over
now
here-
he has emboldened them because they are realizing hawawezi.
Over here,
Mm.
a federal judge,
Makes- makes a ruling.
appointed not by Obama,
No, it was
by a George 2.
Mm.
was it?
Yes, G2. Anaweka pause. Ati continue funding. Mzee anasema utiri kitu takiu. I am telling you na bado wacha watu wakule,
Wacha niwaulize swali hapa.
Mm.
This so-called inaitwaje Project 2025.
Yes.
Like, think about where it's the person who is sitting down or the group of people who are sitting down.
Apparently
The
they started it after the elections in 2020.
Okay, so the people who are sitting down,
Yes, Heritage Foundation.
Heritage Foundation wanakaa
Foundation.
hapo wanaanza kukaranga hii kitu
Yes.
kama wachawi.
Mhm.
Why are
Karibu
you
sana Sambaza.
Eh,
As we
kuna mtu anapiga simu.
No.
Ameweka comment. So imagine you're sitting in a room and you're all discussing. Okay, you're Kenyan, I'm Kenyan, I'm Kenyan. We seem like we are from the same kind of corner of the country.
Uh-huh.
So we're there discussing, let's see how we are going to corner these people from northern Kenya.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? Because you feel threatened.
Correct.
Because you know your days are numbered. So you're trying to reassert yourself, right?
Yes.
So that's why I'm actually really, in some ways, like, okay, there's a human impact. So people are being deported, people are losing their jobs.
Yes.
But if you look underneath, it's coming from what makes someone fly all the way from freaking Montana or Wyoming to come and stone Congress to take over? It's a deep sense of insecurity about knowing that things are bad for us.
As Roland Martin said, it is white fear.
No. It's a white realization. Fear plus realization. Right?
White fear. Wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up. Doctor, tafadhali tuanzie baba boss.
So yeah, so I think this was a really good discussion. I've really enjoyed it, but I think it goes to, at the core of it, goes to issues around ethnic identity and how we choose as societies to to relate to the other people, those who are different from us, whether ethnically, racially, different socioeconomic groups, and the power exercised by those who are of privileged communities, right? Whether it's in Kenya with Somalis or Congolese with the Tutsi in Congo, and we were talking about the same, with respect to whites in white, the white majority and minorities in the U.S. Thanks for having me. I really always enjoy the show. I was a bit upset Ali had to leave. I think there were some perspectives I was really waiting to hear, back from him.
Alipata ile virus ya njugush.
Yeah. Na ilimshika tu akifika hapa.
Then Ali is normally like that. Yeah, when it comes.
Oh, it's sudden, eh?
It comes like
that
it switches.
That voice.
Once it goes,
he was
there,
struggling.
It switches, and he can't. It's not clearable.
Yeah,
yeah. Him talking.
This is our second or third time that we've experienced that.
Yeah,
we just tell him, boss, it's okay.
Yeah, and I if reflecting back on, the last 5 years, I would never have imagined, for many people, even just 1 month ago, 2 months ago, would never have imagined we'd be in a country where, the government has turned on its own population. There's a famous saying that when a hyena wants to eat its young, first it accuses them of smelling like goats, right? So it's just cautionary to say, we are not going to a good place if this is what is becoming how populations are relating to each other. And the saddest thing about it is that we have examples, right? Again, related to this administration, go to the Middle East. If these tribal instincts are not contained, who's to say how Somalis might decide to react, right? If you keep marginalizing them.
Correct.
You keep marginalizing the Tutsi, you can see what has happened. If you have the situation in Gaza. So yeah, thanks for having me. Those are very meaningful discussion. The viewers, listeners, Angie, what was the other one? Resilience. Steve, we hear you. Thanks for participating. And I'm looking forward to coming back to the show. Thank you.
Fire that is almost there.
I'm over here fighting with Resilient.
Please, by all means.
Resilient is telling me that him and Angie are not the same person, and Angie is not resilient, but then they're resilient.
Your account,
they are resilient.
Your WhatsApp group ni moja.
Ni ile. Resilient, nimekuona. Next week, you can call in and prove that you're not Angie. But for now, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate our listeners, and we do this because of you guys. So don't think that even though we may agree to disagree, that we don't agree with you guys coming in and giving us your thoughts and where you're coming from, because it's always good to hear another perspective or hear where someone else is coming from, because in this life, it's really about our experiences. As well as what we've gone through, where things are and where you are in your space. And then sometimes, you add all of those things up, and for you look at it and you say, okay, this is good because it does A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it's going to shape up, say, for my kids or for my this or for my that because of this, and while another person is looking at it and saying, Mapana, me, I'm affected this way. Maybe I'm a target, I've been targeted, just like we had Abdi Nasser, who, what is his name? Yeah, Abdi Nasser came in here and, told us about him having, being affected by Al-Shabaab, and losing close family members, so these are things that if we didn't have this platform and we didn't have you guys listening in, we wouldn't know. And it makes us, in my opinion, better as humans, better as people living in diaspora, better as Kenyans, and better as neighbors with each other. So the more that we have a platform to have discourse and to talk, then it's definitely great. There's a question for you here, Dr. Wangusi. Do you have a brother?
I have 5.
Resilient. He has 5 brothers. So that person who you think he looks like, there's a possibility that's the guy.
Anaitwaje? Hebu muulize anaitwaje.
Yeah, the guy who you're looking for, just tell us what the name is. And so Angie, Andy, you're just trying to open my eyes. Kuna kitu kama hiyo. Resiliently, Angie, you're resilient.
Resilient. Eka jina tusikie kama ni ndugu yangu huyo.
So with that said, have a good week. It's a holiday for some people on Monday. And for others, it's not. So those of what were 3-day weekend, muendele to chill and enjoy, hug your loved ones. Kesho is not promised. See you guys next week. I'll see you.
I think we forgot to tell these people. It's never too late. Our fans.
Oh.
1, 2, 3. Happy
Valentine's.
Aiden!
Pendo mpendeke.
Aiden, Daddy loves you. Jerry, Daddy loves you. Nemo, Daddy loves you. Until next week.